Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday night edition of Spaced Out Radio Tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are so glad to have you here, along with our special guest, William Lunsford, who is literally one of the nicest dudes in the field of Bigfoot research. And I love this guy, and I got to meet him first time face-to-face at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. You're going to love him if you've never heard him speak before. Dirty Filth is here with another awesome cartoon. By the way, Saturday, Dirty Filth is starting his own show right here on Spaced Out Radio. He'll tell you all about it later on in the program. But first, we want to say hello to each and every one of you. We have Tim Mothman in the gold medal position with his goatee. We have Eternity Eternal and Kitty Caddywhack taking in the silver and bronze medal tonight. Hello to Frankie B. And Mama Catherine. I love you, my dear. I hope you enjoy tonight's show. I think it's going to be a good one for you. Bar Madison, how are you? T-Bone, my man. What's happening in New Westminster? Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, how are you? Birthday boy Paramarv is here. Birthday boy Paramarv will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Paramarv. Happy birthday to you. Have a good one, my friend. Thank you for everything you do for us. Really appreciate that. David Dorenberg, how are you? As we continue on with our roll call, Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show, because when you go into a show about Bigfoot, you always want to go in nice and smooth. You don't want any rigidness whatsoever. So thank you, Mel, for lubing us up for tonight's show. Scrolling on down, we say hello next to Lisa Smith. How are you tonight? Amanda, nice to see you again. As we continue on, Bert Hollocks, welcome to SOR Chat. Good morning, my fellow Commonwealther. Good to have you here. Thank you for joining us in the studio. Thank you for coming on in. And Race Fan, good to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Weird that you're not in the medal position tonight. It always weirds me out, bud. Always weirds me out. Flat Six, how you doing? Good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call here, scrolling on down, Operation Shutdown. Cosmic Joe, nice to see you both. Thank you for tuning us in tonight. As we continue on with our roll call, up next we have number 27 in your program, starting on defense from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Moving on in the NHL playoffs. Big Lars, that's right. He's a hammer back there. Fast Hemi, how are you doing? Good to have you here. So we continue on with our roll call. Eternity Eternal is here. Eternity Eternal will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Continuing on here. Let's next say hello to Carol Amerio. Thank you for coming on in. As well as Kathy Evans. Nice to see you. Richard Minnick, good to have you back. J Truth Seeker, good to have you here. Bar Madison, Cielo, good to have you both here. as we continue on. Zen 1, all the way from lovely Nebraska. Nice to see you. How's Lexington tonight? Super Duke, Super Duke. Good to have you here, Super Duke. All right, moving on. Ozzy, good to have you here. Al Garay over on Twitch. 1,500 incline dumbbell presses. 10 minutes. Guy is jacked tonight. Marty Burback, Trucker Andrew, nice to see you both here as we continue on with our roll call. And Matthew Goodka, thank you for coming on in. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. William Lunsford is here to talk about Bigfoot in Arkansas. We'll get to him momentarily. We are in roll call on our YouTube side before we fire up tonight's show. So next we'll say hello to Road Flare and Steve Garza. Good to have you both here. And let's see here. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to see you. And Kurt M. Thanks for coming on in. And I think we might be caught up. Hey, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show coming at you tonight as we're going to get into some Bigfoot action from the beautiful state of Arkansas. William Lunsford will be here momentarily. Then in hour number 3, we have Swamp Dweller kicking things off with another crazy cartoon. We will follow that up with Robin Haynes coming in for the Crypted Q&A. So let's get right to it here because we are going to have a fantastic night talking about the big monsters of the forest. Williams Lunsford is from Texarkana, Arkansas, and has had over 40 Bigfoot sightings. He has been researching them for over 43 years. He saw the Fouke monster in 1977 and has been hooked on the subject of Bigfoot ever since. As a teenager, William was walking down a road when he saw something strange, and this thing was on the other side of the road. He had squatted down, and he had a limb in front of his face. Yeah. And then he stands up, lifts up the limb, and then he keeps standing up. Lunsford stood frozen in fear. Why wouldn't he? When you have a close encounter like this, your emotions literally take over. Since then, William researches in multiple states and has had several experiences. Due to all of his sightings and experiences, he has tons of great stories to share with us tonight, so let's bring him on in. William Lunsford, how you doing, my friend? It's good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio.
Dave, I am so glad to be here. I have looked forward to this. Other night, I went to a Ted Nugent concert, and I thought, oh, my gosh, what am I going to do to top this? And I'm like, hey, we got Spaced Out Radio coming on. So that's the only thing that will do it. So glad to be here with everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Again, special thanks to our service people who've done what they have served as far so we can do what we do. Look forward to this. Again, man, what a great roll call of folks there, and I certainly appreciate them. A lot of I've never met, some I may have talked to there through the internet, but I'm glad to be here, man, and it's something I've looked forward to. We did a show, I think it was like April 24th, 2022, and ever since then, the world's never been the same. So we're going to change it again tonight here because Bigfoot is a real is a real entity, folks. And like I said, we have a lot of them down here and glad to talk about them. As Dave said, we just left Nebraska and a Bigfoot conference. We had 10 really good speakers. The fact that we know that Bigfoot is real, because there's no way we all got together and conspired and said, oh, yeah, well, let's just play a joke on these people and tell them all these things happen. That's not going to happen, folks. Again, Bigfoot is real. It's all over the country. It's all over the world. And I'm so glad to be here to share with you. That's my whole purpose, is to share with folks and to hopefully get them sightings of their own. And I'm so glad to have Super Dave here on our side now, So I'm ready to get started, buddy. I'm going to shut up and let you get started there. So.
Well, I want to make a little statement about you first, if you don't mind, and I'm going to brag about you here for a second. When we met at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, you walked right up to me and you introduced yourself, and you literally came up and thanked me for having you on the show, and how it really seemed to take off for you right after that, where people were getting your books, people were really interested in listening to what you had to hear. You've got more followers and everything. But most of all, you were a genuine, absolute, stunning human being.
Thank you,
and
Dave.
you were so thankful and polite, and it just really resonated with me, my man, because I when you go to these conferences, you never know what to expect, and you were just a beautiful breath of fresh air, and getting to shake your hand and to be able to talk to you and spend some time with you there. So I just want to push that to the audience of what kind of man we're talking about here, because you are really a genuine good one, Will.
Well, man, I thank you for saying that, Dave. I appreciate it, man. I'm from the South. I'd like to give my parents credit for giving me hopefully a good raising there. And so, again, man, I love people, all ages, all races. And this is something I really enjoy sharing with everybody there, and who's actually interested in a part of my life. And I appreciate them for doing that right there. I said, seeing you, man, like I said, it was like seeing a long lost brother, even though we had never, met before. And if you remember, we got a good old bro hug there. I tell you what, Dave's pretty scrappy there, buddy, and then 2 before we left. So I was very glad to meet you as well. And boy, what a great team we had there. That's generally what you find when you go to most of these Bigfoot conferences. You find people that are pretty well-class people. They're there just to have a good time. They're not judgmental about the way you look, the way you talk. Every time, I'm from Arkansas, folks. So in case you hadn't noticed, y'all all have accents. No, I kid you. They all say, hey, where are you from? I'm from Arkansas. We knew it. We knew you from there, Texas. So again, but very, very glad to be there with everybody and to share the things. I'm in the woods, gosh, guys, 3 to 5 days every week. And I'm a boots on the ground researcher. I'm not just from my vehicle. I actually get down in the woods and walk around some good tracks last week. And hopefully one of these days I'm going to get that first video to send to everybody to see. I've got some pretty good pictures here all this year. I've gotten several good pictures. I'm doing a lot of game cam photography. I specialize in game cam photography. And people say you can't get them on game cam. Well, that's not true. And I've got a bunch of them this year, and hopefully going to get to share them pretty soon there. So again, thank you again, man. I appreciate you saying those good words there, folks. And, if y'all ever hear me getting conceited or out of line, just grab me and through the computer, give me a good shake and say, "Will, settle down." And I promise you I'll do the same. So.
Well, you know what? Let's get right into it, because we could literally compliment each other all night long. But I want people to hear your stories. You've had over 40 sightings of this amazing creature. I've seen 3. Okay, but you have had 40. Have you just been in the right place at the right time, or have you learned the patterns of Sasquatch?
Well, David, that's a really good question. I really do believe that I've learned the patterns of Sasquatch. I've always been an outdoorsman. I've been a deer hunter. I've been a semi-professional bass fisherman. I actually learned more about Bigfoot from bass fishing, the way they relate to the edges, the hills, the things like that, than I actually have from anything else. But I have I live in what's called the 4 states area. It's Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, those 4 states right there. And they're all known for having Bigfoot. You got Bigfoot of the Bayou in Louisiana. You got, the East Texas piney woods. Arkansas, we've got our very own Fouke monster, folks. If y'all haven't seen the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek, just go look at it. One of my best friends is Keith Crabtree. He's the man who actually played the monster in the movie. So we got him. And then in Oklahoma, folks, is one of the most up and coming states for Bigfoot sightings that you've ever seen. And I saw one there one day. We were sleeping and I was camping with some guys there, and one came up and I heard just one little pebble roll. And so I turned on my flashlight I had there in my hand. Sure enough, I see him walking on the other side of my vehicle, and it's about 8.5 foot tall above my roof right there as far as the overall size. And so I lit him up, and he took off, and he came back later, got a couple of rocks right outside our tent, and just to kind of pay us back for scaring him, smack! He smacked those rocks together, and he took off running back to the river there in Oklahoma. But I got to see that one right there, and that was really amazing too. But I think, Dave, I have the disposition that they know I'm not going to hurt them. I'm not out to kill Bigfoot. I wouldn't kill Bigfoot. It would have to be going to kill me, and or one of my family for me to even think about it, And I've had some pretty hairy encounters right there. But I think it's just being in the right place, the right time, being in a state that has them. People say, well, Will, what's the first key to have a Bigfoot sighting? Well, man, first thing is be somewhere where the Bigfoot are located. Get on. There's several websites that you can get on here, and you can look and see. You can get on some of the shows, like you mentioned, Super Duke a while ago, getting on World Bigfoot Radio, and with your show, and have people tell them where they're having some sightings. Most anybody that's worth their salt as a Bigfoot hunter, in my opinion, is wanting to help you have a sighting. And so get on there and look at those things. Find you a place there and start doing some research right there. And that's your first step. And then you're going to really surprise yourself. You walk right by them sometime, and they're right there. And their biggest key to not being seen is just being still. That's about like a deer. I learned that from deer hunting, and I've had several there that are standing there in the woods just looking at you. Finally, you see them. So again, go somewhere where you have got Bigfoot. Like I said, look for them standing still, look for play in the shadows, and then go from there. But I really think it's that. I think it's the disposition that I don't want to hurt them. Again, the things that I've learned from Bigfoot. I've actually been doing it now. This year turned to be my 47th year. From 1977, so I've been doing this for 47 years. Of course, I know I don't look at all this colored hair that I got on here, but nevertheless, for 47 years, I've been doing Bigfoot research, and very, very fortunate to have them. I've got some there. I've got 10 game cameras out now. Again, I've got to give my research partners credit because Bob got a great team of men and women that go out and we share all information that we have there to make us all better researchers, I think. So again, that has a lot to do with it. So.
I got a couple of questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
Just listening to what you're saying. How do you know you're in a Sasquatch area? Because most people who go into the forest, maybe for a hike or maybe ATVing or hunting, they don't know that they are in a Sasquatch area. Because a Sasquatch area could really be anywhere.
That's right.
How do you know when you're in a Sasquatch area?
Well, number one, they tend to want to have some cover. So you just about got to have some cover. Now, we got some clear cuts there. I've seen them walking across. But as a rule, they won't cover. They love to hide. I've got many, many pictures there. I've got, over probably 300 pictures of Bigfoot and Bigfoot sightings, Bigfoot prints of the tree structures that they make. And several of those pictures you'll see Bigfoot hiding behind a tree and peeking out, looking at you. Just like that. I sent you a couple here or there that where I've got Bigfoot actually standing within 12 to 15 feet of me right there, just looking at me. So you look at that right there. The first thing you do, like I said, you need some cover there because they're pretty sharp animals. Most animals or most beings, have to have some, even we people, have to have some cover there. And so then after that right there, you want to have some kind of food source there. And then probably most important of all, a lot of my sightings there, I list there in my book there about how many of them have been around creeks, reservoirs, rivers, and ponds and things like that. So you've got to have some water there. I think water is more important to a human being than food. And I think it is with Bigfoot as well. Except the thing is, it's almost like you've seen the savannas there and the African wilderness there. And you see how after everything kind of dries up, all the animals right there at the water hole. Well, that's a lot. You've got to have some water for Bigfoot right there. And because when you do, all the animals are going to come, or the animals that it eats are going to come to it. So that's a very important part right there. And then too, you want to, as we drive through there, you want to be really observant. I look for a lot of trails. If I'm on the way to church, Dave, I'm looking for Bigfoot trails, as silly as that sounds. I mean, because you'll see the trails, and the thing you can tell about a Bigfoot trail right there, they're really high. There's a lot of limbs that are broke off way up here from where they go through, and then there where the feet are, they can just step over. So they're almost like a reverse trail is what you can see. So I look for those as well. Again, I try to keep my ears open. They'll holler at you at some of the least expected times that will flat scare you out of your skin. But in doing that, and then too, they're not necessarily have to be in the deepest part and darkest part of the woods. They do come to the city. If you're the Fouke Monster Store, if y'all remember that, the thing was crossing the road down there. And so people saw it crossing the road there in the vehicle, everything. And that was actually one of my buddy's aunts that had the very first sighting down there. So these things, they'll come into town. They get in people's gardens. I got a call from a lady, or my friend yesterday, actually, he got the call from the lady. We're going to go check her out. And he's already been up there today. But it's in Louisiana. They're around Caddo Lake. If y'all ever heard of Caddo Lake, Caddo Lake is a natural lake. And so, I mean, it's full of cypress trees. It's full of Spanish moss, really, really deep woods. And sure enough, she called him yesterday. And one was on top of the house, beating on top of the house, beating on the side. So the daughter goes out and takes a look. And when she does, she sees the hand reaching around from the side of the house. So that's going to be something we check out pretty soon. But when you have something like that, you're obsessed with finding out what it is. And like I said, this good team of researchers that I belong to, that thank goodness they consider me to be a good enough friend to share their information to with me. So doing that right there and going out, I don't ever, if somebody says, well, can you come out here and check? My answer is not no. My answer is going to be, I'll do everything I can to get there. And you would be surprised at some of the places that people have seen Bigfoot. So we're doing that right there. And then I keep a good book to document my sightings. I try to document the weather. Now I don't do the moon phases and stuff like that, but I do, document the time of year. And as a rule, there's a rule called same time next year. If they're doing it and there's no difference in conditions, then Bigfoot are actually going to probably show up at the same place. So that's just a few little tips there that kind of get you started. But then, after that, they'll kind of start, you'll see a lot of tree breaks and tree structures, things that couldn't be manipulated. Wind possibly could do it, but you'd have to have 3 tornadoes all spinning in different ways for these things to be like that right there. The trees will be snapped, and then you can look on the trails there for the footprints. When you find a Bigfoot footprint, it's the first one I ever found. I was so shocked. I looked down, and there it was. It was probably about 16 and a half inches long. And I realized that within the last 24 hours where I was standing, a Bigfoot had been standing. And man, that really shook me up. That brought me back to a part of consciousness that I had not ever thought about. And then I get that second track, and then it wasn't too long after that, I had my tracks there, and then one was following me. So that was pretty cool right there. So to realize that they're just as interested in us people as what we are in them most of the time. So,
well, you know what? As someone who is an amateur, as much as I am in going into the field, I'm learning on the fly here on doing what I do. I have been lucky where I went to one area where I didn't expect to see a Bigfoot, and now they're there because we've been chased out of the forest twice.
Yep.
At my other location, I found while touring around the forest and found a footprint right on the ground. And that's how it was for me. But not everybody is that lucky.
Right.
There are people who've been in the forest 30, 40, 50 years and have never seen one. Maybe they've found a print, but they've never seen one. They've never encountered one. Do you think that Bigfoot is a creature of trust? That it looks to build a trust? Because I don't go jumping around the trails. I know a number of people don't go jumping around the trails. We sit there. We allow them to come to us.
Right.
Because I have this weird wonky feeling that it is about building trust and communion and all sorts of respect, that I'm not chasing them down. They have full control of the situation. How do you feel about that?
Man, I agree with you 100%, Dave. I go out in the woods. Like I said, I've got cameras out there. Sometimes I'll do some calling, which calling does work. But as a rule, when we first get there, we sit there and we just be quiet, just like you're talking about. Put the windows down, turn the vehicles off, and just sit there. And pretty soon, if you're real lucky, you'll hear those footsteps kind of creeping around you. But I think that's one reason that a lot of these TV shows don't get any evidence that you see, because they're there maybe one night, two nights, and then they're gone. These things, they're not stupid. Man, I mean, they're one of the smartest. They're the smartest animal besides, or creature besides people, that I think that there ever is. So I think that trust is there. I've got some up there on one of our areas there for me and my research partner Stephen, and she appears to be a female, judging by the way the tracks are, and she follows us around. And then too, after we're there for a while, I took a friend of mine from Alaska. He contacted me a couple of years ago, named Daniel. You met Daniel there at the Nebraska conference. And so Daniel came in with me, and I guess they associated me with him because all of a sudden he starts getting sightings right there. I mean, we're sitting there and we do what's called grid pictures. Put the camera here, then we go to here, then we go to here, and then put them together to see what we can find. We're standing there in the middle of a field, and we can hear them moving, but we can't see them. And so I carry a gun just because of hogs, just because of bears and things like that. So he's taking pictures. So let's see what you got. We got a picture there, Dave. And then all of a sudden there's one standing over there, kind of intermingled between the limbs of a tree. And looks to have a baby on his neck, and it's got a handprint right here as though it has another that's reaching around it, holding on there. And so we sit there, and we were out there probably 10 to 15 minutes. The thing didn't move. And then we finally went on back to my truck. Then we go probably another mile, and then we see a mother Bigfoot crossing a clear cut. And I keep seeing her hands move for something. Well, she stops. And we sit there and wait, and I was going to try to get video, and realized she wasn't going to move again. So I had someplace to be. So I told Daniel, I'm just going to snap a few pictures. Well, I go up there, and whenever I get home, I blow them up, and she's at what for her hands were moving. There's actually a baby there on her waist. But she has seen me before. A lot of the ones that we have now that are showing up on camera, I think are Bigfoot that we have had there before. And they actually, say, hey, man, there's Will. Let's see what he's doing, And it would just blow your mind how many, they know where all my cameras are. I've got them, Dave, this year. It's just so funny. They're just right there in my camera, just like that right there, looking into my lens. You're like, oh, my gosh, But like I said, there hasn't been any kind of threats made or anything else like that. They're just like, hey, let's see what he's doing. And that's what I do. I actually bait them up. I think that's another reason they trust me. I bait them up. I use candy bars to bait them up. And they got a sweet tooth kind of like I do. And so they come in and to get those candy bars. It's a joke. I put a little baby Snickers bars out there, and they're the world's worst litter bug. They'll litter up that forest. So as soon as you put the candy bar out there and you go back, there's a whole trail of Snickers bars. Well, you can actually see what trail they're using. So it's really, really funny. But they trust me in that way right there. So it is a creature of trust like that right there. The same way that dogs are in some ways. They have a great intuition about people who are good. There are certain people they don't like, Dave, and that's what's I had some people I've taken with me, and whenever I came back on my own, the trails that I had taken them on had trees pushed over, had logs dug across. I'm like, don't bring these people back again. And they said, man, I'd love to go back again. And you just kind of say, well, man, maybe we can go back pretty soon. But the whole thing is, I'm not going to take them because I'm afraid for their safety. Sometimes they just don't like people. So that trust factor that you've got, exactly like the things that they leave for you. We sometimes leave peanut butter out there buried. The next day we come back and the peanut butter jar has been pulled up. Wait about a week, come back, and the lid from the peanut butter jar is put back onto the stump. But we quit unscrewing them for them just to see how smart they were. Well, then when they did, they started coming back in like old pop bottle opener. The edges of the peanut butter jar were popped open like that right there, and it was placed back onto the stump. And that, to me, that has to be trust. I agree with you 100%.
What breaks that trust? We got about 90 seconds.
Okay, on that right there, I think now they've seen me there with a gun. Like I said, I've got a 45-70 rifle. They know at any time I'm capable of shooting them or anything, but that I'm not going to. I think if you bring the wrong person in there or go in there disrespecting their stuff. One day I took a stick from a tree structure just to help me use as a walker, like what you were talking about, what one had left your friend right there. They chased me. I couldn't see them, but they were making enough racket, and they chased me for 200 yards before I walked back and put that stick back in that tree structure, and then everything was fine for the rest of the trip right there. So I think if you do something like that, if you do anything to violate that trust, you do anything to their infants or even their territory, just tearing things up, they're what's theirs is theirs and what's yours is theirs, and that's what they want you to know. And as long as you don't violate that, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the big one is, it has to be about safety first.
Right.
It has to be about safety of your location. It has to be about safety of what you're trading them. It has to be about safety about how you're going to react to them and how they're going to react to you. But I mean, anybody can do this. Do maybe when we come back from the break, we'll figure out whether you recommend people going out there looking for Bigfoot. Let's
Okay.
find out when we return on
Okay.
Spaced Out Radio for the second half of this first hour of the show. William Lunsford, Sasquatch researcher, author. He's a good dude in this field, and when he speaks, we should all listen because he speaks knowledge of the Sasquatch. We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we are clear. Remember, our audience can hear us, just not on radio.
Okay.
Good start, man. That's solid.
I appreciate that, Dave. I appreciate your confidence in me to have me back, folks. What I'm telling everybody is true because it's. I've been doing it now for, like I said, 47 years. I'm actually up to probably 50 sightings now. I've seen all different colors, all different head shapes. I mean, it's just amazing. And of course, I'm out there in the woods. I'm retired now, so I've got more time to spend in the woods, and that's definitely based on the ratio of time to effort is going to relate to more sightings also. And then to have these good people that I've got 2 people in my group that have Bigfoot on their land, so that's pretty cool too. So they let me come on their, even when they're not there, come on their property and research around and stuff like that. So I want, like I said, everybody to have that opportunity to see when they do, it's going to change your life. You realize, gosh, I'm not the top of the food chain anymore, and that's pretty cool too. Man's kind of an arrogant creature. Well, Bigfoot is not. Bigfoot is just, like I said, just accepting of you and I, as we would want them to be of us. But what I said, like I said, is true. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. It'll be, I had my last sighting last year, April 23rd of 2024, on the way down to Monster Mart, standing on the side of the interstate right there during a doggone rainstorm. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was going down to actually work the Monster Festival. And so it stood right there and it watched me. And I finally got turned around to where I could go back and look. Of course, he's already gone. That's the way it is. But I think, where I live too, like I said, Fouke, Arkansas, is the home of the legend Boggy Creek. It's probably the second most famous Bigfoot ever, besides Patty, that they have there in California. And to have the sightings, I've got another lady called me. I went to church with for most of my life. She called me last year, and she had accidentally set up a compost garden. Well, she started getting visitors, and like I said, these visitors are not all the size of bunny rabbits. So she called me and said, "Will, can you come down?" I said, "Love to." Well, got COVID of all things, didn't get to. So, but anyway, after we got through there, and she asked me to come. Well, the activity had gone from that part, but I'm going to get to go down there again in about a month to go there and check out their place. So really, really excited about that. Like I said, going to go to Caddo Lake to the lady who had the one last night. About a month ago, she had a baby out there that was actually putting its fingers on their camper. They were having to sleep in their camper. It was actually putting its fingerprints up, and they've actually got fingerprints on the window. So, it's just, and you see stuff like that, and like, oh my gosh, how lucky, am I really this lucky? And yes, you are. It's something that's just, you can't take for granted. Just like you said, the sightings sometimes are just so rare. And then some days, boy, you can't do anything wrong. Every tree you've got's got a structure or something around it. So everybody in there that can hear us on there, folks, I'm telling you the truth. It's a ball. I had one guy. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just think it's so much fun.
Man, you're so excited when you go out there, man. You're like, oh gosh, what's going to happen tonight? And I had a man call me from Nebraska a couple of years ago, and he said, man, you made me quit my job. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be in trouble now with your wife or what? He goes, man, he said, you look like you're just having so much fun. I said, man, I'm having a ball. I said, this is, I'm retired now. I didn't know what I could do. I'm not getting to bass fish as much as I did, but I'm getting to go out in the woods and have interactions with something that's not supposed to exist, but it does, and I mean, some personal interactions. I mean, they're, like I said, they're coming up, looking in my cameras. They're taking my cameras, throwing my cameras, chewing them off the daggum trees, sometimes throwing them into the woods, seeing me on a scavenger hunt. That's pretty funny too, so it's one of those things that the more they get to know you, I think the more they're willing to interact with you. and I've never done anything, like I said, to break that trust. Like you and I said, it's the same way. Try that with your wife or your dog and see how long it takes. And they're the closest that we got, and you can see that it actually hurts their feelings sometimes. That may sound silly, but it's not. They're like, man, why did you do that? So when you get out there like that right there, just be respectful, because things can change in a heartbeat. They can change the dynamic of a sighting, of an encounter, or anything at the drop of a hat. And you didn't have your hat.
We've got about 45 seconds here before we're coming back.
Okay.
And we want to say a big thank you to T-Bone tonight for kicking off the Super Chat. We greatly appreciate your love and support nightly on Spaced Out Radio, T-Bone. So thank you very, very much. And BW, how you doing? And thank you for joining us tonight. If you have questions, put them in capital letters. We'd appreciate it. Do me a favor, everybody. Go look at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. And we're going to get going here in a few seconds with the second half hour. Comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Talking Bigfoot tonight with William Lunsford. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. William Lunsford is here. We're talking Bigfoot. He's had over 50 sightings of these amazing creatures that we call Sasquatch. And right before the break, I asked you, William, do you think this is a hobby anybody could or should take up? What's your thoughts on that?
It's not just for everybody. This is number one. This is not an inexpensive hobby or habit that you have. I'm certainly not rich by any means, but I tell you what, it's as far as for a time, risk, and reward for me, it's great. It's definitely worth it. But for other people, you don't, like I said, you can't have a fear factor inside your soul where, man, I can't get out there and start running. Because when you start running from something, any kind of being like that right there, especially if you're in their territory, it can change the dynamic as well. So, but as far as going, I would recommend it. There's a lot of good people out there that actually take people on the Bigfoot sightings and things like that, or take them on a Bigfoot expedition. And it's good that you can take that and learn some things. You just don't want to go out there on your own sometimes, because you can really make some boo-boos. And then if they are there, I have heard of some people saying, well, man, I had one there and I went out there and had my shotgun, just shot off into the air, just next thing you know, he said, hadn't seen it again. Well, that probably changed the way things were looking. Another guy that me and Keith Crabtree were Keith was talking to last year, and he opened up a shooting range down there on his land that he has down there in Texas. And then all of a sudden it's changed the Bigfoot activity. The Bigfoot have become more aggressive. So that's something so it'd be something that's good, that if you go with somebody that can kind of show you some of the ropes, there's a lot of little things that can attract Sasquatch. Ladies attract Sasquatch. Bigfoot had, just like us guys do, they have an affection for women. They're softer. They've got the softer voice. We men walk through the woods, man, like we're fixing to knock down the next tree, and not even use a saw. But the women are more, they're more gentle. And so therefore, when you have your women with you, sometimes the sighting becomes a whole lot more personal. They actually come in a whole lot closer. I take my wife with me, and she will vouch for that. And if we have some people that we take with us, she'll tell, I let her talk to the ladies, if you know what I mean, ladies. Certain times that you just don't want to go, and that's one of those times you don't want to go. And so I let her handle all that stuff like that right there. But again, it's something that you want to do. You want to have somebody with you to kind of show you the ropes. Two, it's not just easy. Like I said, when you go through there, sometimes you'll trek. Gosh, so there's days I trek through there sometimes 4 to 5 miles. and then thank goodness now you can have on your phone, you can have a GPS tell you about how long you've been so that you can turn around and actually make it back before dark. Me and my buddy had a sighting a couple of years ago there. Well, actually, one between my wife and my son. And I, on Easter Sunday 2014, had one run us out of the woods, or try to run us out of the woods anyway. And so my buddy wanted to go the next day. So we do. So we get down there, and he said, "Oh, man, I know this area like the back of my hand." When it come time to leave, well, evidently he turned the back of his hand to the front of his hand because we took the wrong trail. And we're there walking through the woods at 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night with no flashlights, nothing. And we've got hogs down here like crazy. And the hog is about as vicious as anything except for the grizzlies up north. So anyway, we're hearing the hogs take off running and stuff. Finally, we get back. So again, that would have been something that I would have. Generally, if I go, I'll carry some flagging tape somewhere where I haven't been. I'll take that flagging tape and then something that you can see, with the reflection off of a flashlight. That's something that you don't want to do without. Flashlight's ultra important. You want to get you some kind of nutrition, water. Again, like I said, if you've got animals there, you want to have some kind of protection. That you don't necessarily want to have to shoot them, but like I said, sometimes a good shot into the air will scare them away. But after that right there, but if you're anti, having to, sometimes nature's cruel as far as the way these animals treat each other. You'll see, I saw a couple of alligators one day. One alligator was probably 12 foot long, had one about 7 foot up in his mouth, and he's right on the edge of the river, and he had him up in his mouth, just shaking him around like that. I mean, it's actually disturbing because I'm kind of an animal lover, but I mean, I know that's how nature is. So, but if you're afraid of seeing that, or if you're afraid of seeing nothing, then you probably don't want to go into to the Bigfoot woods there, by yourself for sure, because there's things like that. It can be disturbing. And, but boy, like I said, when you get that first sighting, you get that first footprint, you're like, oh my gosh, man, these things don't exist. Oh, yes, they do. And you're looking down at your feet and you're seeing your foot there and its foot there, you're like, gosh. So again, there are people that might not should go, but again, if you can, I think an average cost now of a Bigfoot outing that you take with some of these people is about $300 to $400, but it can be worth it. Especially if you want to get into this as a hobby, as a genre or something other like that. There's a lot of tools that they can share with you that would really be worth it. And then pretty soon, I mean, it's pretty scary first time you go out there by yourself. First time I took my son with me, and it just he and I, man, I was scared to death. It wasn't scary for me, but I was scared for him. What could happen there? So again, if you got somebody with you like that to share with you, and again, Dave, when they, like you said, when they start gifting with you, all of a sudden I took my preacher son with me one day, and he had a little Debbie rocket cake or something other like that, and he set it down on the stump. Well, he forgot about it. So we left, and that day went to church that night. He goes, "Man, I forgot my little rocket cake." He said, "If you would just get it the next time you go." Well, he was sitting on the stump. So I went back 2 days later. When I went back, this rocket cake was gone, but there were rocks sitting on top of the stump arranged into a pretty neat little formation and stuff like that. And I asked him, I said, "Did you put those rocks on top of there?" And he goes, "No, I didn't put them there." And I said, "Well, your little Debbie cake is gone." So Stephen, my research partner, I told him about it, and him and Randy Crawford. So they kind of, next time we went there, they kind of started slipping a few rocks in there. We got a picture of a little baby that was coming through there, Dave, that was playing with Legos. Marbles, the little cat balls that got the little balls in there, the little jingle bells and stuff. They love to play with those things. We were putting candy bars there for them to eat. And it was just, and then too, the peanut butter that we mentioned earlier. And I would have never thought in a million years, all these people that were talking about, having things gifted to them like that we would have. I believed it, but I thought it would just be, just one certain thing. But there's a vast array of things they have. The ones that we have on our areas, hate green marbles. I took the big old boulder type marbles and we put them on top of the stump. I thought, boy, this will sure get him going. No, whenever we would come back, every time, bar none, those two big boulder marbles will be set as far away as this Bigfoot arm could reach his arm and take them off there. So really, really strange, but really, really, after that right there, and I told my preacher son what had happened. And evidently he did something there as far as, like I said, taking one of those sticks out of one of those tree structures, because the next time we came, they were not happy that he was there. And so, I didn't get to take him again anymore after that, because I didn't think it was worth the risk to his health until maybe we could kind of graduate him in there again, real soon. So kind of a strange story, but that's the truth. That's exactly what happened. But he loved it. I actually found a footprint there, and I led him beside it so that he could actually think he found it, which was fine with me, and he did. Oh man, they're real. I'm like, yeah, they're real. He goes, I said, you think I spend all this money doing this right here and they're not real? He goes, man, that's crazy. And this was probably about a 13.5, 14-inch print, but it was a naked footprint out in the middle of some mud during the wintertime. And so that really, it really, to see the joy on a young man's face, he was actually a senior in high school, to see the joy on a young man's face like that was worth something to me too. I told his dad didn't believe it till we found an upside down tree jammed into the ground like a post hole with the roots sticking up like that. His dad goes, I see it, but I don't believe it. But I still see it. I'm like, yeah. I said, you thought I was kidding you, didn't you? And he goes, I can't believe it. So pretty cool stuff. Again, something that I was able to share with Tyron, who's, like I said, he's a really good kid, and to share this with him and to kind of develop an interest. And that's our next group of Bigfoot researchers, man. What you and I leave here incompleted, that's going to be the ones to, hopefully do it if we train them right. So.
You said in the first half hour that you've had some pretty hairy encounters. What's one that really sticks out in your mind where you thought, is this my day?
Well, of course, I've had some, like I said, where they're sneaking around you. They take off running, or they bluff charge you, or they'll stomp. But the one night there was, like I said, the one I just mentioned there, two that really come to mind. Easter Sunday, 2014, I took my wife and my son. My son was in dental school, just fixing to finish up he got to have another month left of school. So we had been asking my wife to go, and she wouldn't go. And she said, well, he's going to get tired of asking me. So I said, you want to go with us tonight? Yeah, I believe I'll go. Man, neither one of us could believe it. So we went down there into the woods of Sulphur River Bottoms down there, which is where the Fouke monster was located there. And all along the Sulphur River in Texas, Bigfoot sightings, just like you cannot imagine. So we go down there that night. It takes usually, like I said, you do a few calls and they'll respond to you. Well, it took about 30, 40 minutes to get a Bigfoot to respond to us. And we're finally getting there, and I'm just about to get frustrated. And all of a sudden, like that. And I said, there's one, Cindy. And she goes, that's an owl. I said, if that's an owl, he weighs 400 pounds. So we sit there and I did some more calls, and then he answered back, and then he got real quiet. And we could hear him over there in the distance kind of moving around. Of course, Reese could hear him as well. And he's over there putting out, actually, strangely enough, beef jerky out there in the trees and putting out fruit and stuff to bring them in. So as we're sitting there, I can hear him kind of starting to sneak up on us that night. And I said, Cindy, so we got one sneaking up on us. I don't hear anything. I said, well, just be real quiet. So anyway, a couple times later on, I hear him sneaking again. He stops. I said, he's standing right over there. And she goes, you really think so? I said, I know so. So finally, as he starts sneaking in, I did something stupid. Anytime you do Bigfoot calls, you don't know what you're saying, Dave. And that's the thing about it. So as he's on his way in, I'm like, whoop. Whoop. And whenever I did, buddy, here he come on a dead run, and he was not happy with me. Whatever I said, it was either come and get it, or else, your mama's wears army shoes or something like that right there, because he was mad, and he was coming in. I told my wife, I said, remember I told you we got one coming in? She goes, yeah. I said, here he comes. I don't hear anything. She goes, I hear him now. And buddy, the ground truly was actually vibrating, and he was on his way, and he was mad. And I realized I had to be calm. So I put my spotlight in my left hand, put my pistol in my right hand, just in case. And so he gets up there probably. I let him get a little closer than I wanted to, because I didn't realize he's running as fast as what he was. He was coming straight in. Now, some people said it was a bluff charge. Well, no, he wasn't bluffing that night. He was mad. I think it was springtime. He's probably Twitter-pated, and then having a young lady with you, it made a big difference. So anyway, by the time I hit him with spotlight, Davey threw his hand up above his eyes like this and just turned and was on the ground, running on all fours. Took about 3 or 4 steps backwards, then stood up again. And whenever he did, he took off running back towards this road. He crossed the road, then jumped up in a tree in front of my son. I'm like, oh, crap, man, he thinks he's the weak link. So I went and stood in front of him. Finally, he jumps out of the tree. Well, whenever he does, and he starts running away, there's one beside him there that we didn't know was over there. And he, ruh, ruh, ruh. And I thought, oh, my gosh, we got another one. So I did the spotlight thing and everything. He finally took off. Well, then it got real quiet, the deathly quiet, the tomb quiet that you've heard about. It got deathly quiet. And my wife goes, did you hear that? And I said, no, what? She goes, that's it. Nothing. You hear nothing. And I said, well, she said, I've heard that happens. And I said, well, that's, so other creatures know he's out here as well. So anyway, she slides over in my truck underneath the driver's side. And she goes, if you hear this truck start, y'all better jump in the back because I'm gone. Like I said, my son, we got one son is all, and he's fixing to be a dentist. Boy, how proud. Nobody would ever think a doctor would come from my loins, as far as that goes. If he did, you think, gosh, I better not go, but he did. So he was there and she was there. And so then whenever we sit there and I said, Cindy, you're going to leave your only son and your husband out here with a rogue Bigfoot. And she goes, I will have more kids. So you better listen to me. Well, she didn't mention her old hubby right here that's here protecting her or anything else like that, And so anyway, we had a good little laugh after that. So we decided she cranks up the engine. She's ready to leave. So we do. Well, then her sister-in-law calls. And she goes, hi, sister, what are you doing? She goes, oh, we're down here in the Bigfoot woods. And she goes, y'all have anything happen? She goes, yeah. And she goes, you're going to die. Well, buddy, I took a chewing like I have never taken in my life for that right there. Just what were you planning on doing? Well, whatever I had to do, make sure y'all got home safe. But I had one where one got after, I went on one Saturday afternoon, me and Randy Crawford, one of my research partners. And it's down there on Mercer Bayou. And we found a track. Boy, it was beautiful. But it was during the summertime. It was really getting hot. It was in the soft mud. The mud was drying up, so it was the amount of castable area was shrinking. So I had to, that afternoon, it was late when we saw it. So I came back the next morning after church and I had my black pit bull with me. And boy, she was just a great loving dog, very, very protective. And I'd buy her a bag of Cheetos, get me a Mountain Dew, man, we'd head to the woods. Well, as we get out there, I strap her up on her leash and I walk about probably 20 or 30 yards. And this Bigfoot, evidently the same one that had left the footprint, is up there. And he just, man, when she went to shaking. And she wasn't afraid of nothing. And I was really more afraid for her. I had guns. I had a shotgun. I had the 2 rifles, and I had some pistols. I had them all in a bucket. Had some stuff to cast the footprint. And so then we get a little bit further down there, and I've got her on a leash, and man, she's just running around all over the place because she's nervous, which I certainly understand. And so we get down to where the footprint was. The dam on the foot, in order to pour in the plaster Paris, had already dried up enough I couldn't get a good track. So I just thought, well, man, what things are going right here? I better go back home. So I start to turn around. The thing screams again. So I get up there, right there, real close to the truck, and he has come down the hill and he's trying to flank us over there, and he screams again. So whenever he does, I'm like, oh, good grief. So I dropped the bucket and set the bucket down right there. I'm looking around. Finally, I remembered I had my fob from my truck in my pocket. So he's over there, and like I said, he's still stirring around. He's still growling. So I took that fob and hit the horn, just wah, wah, wah. Well, that threw him off for whatever his plans were. Well, then my dog got her courage back about her, and then she kind of busted up like, you're not going to hurt my owner. Of course, like I said, I wasn't going to let him hurt her, but I opened the door, and whenever I did to my truck, she jumped from the ground all the way across my seat and my console with just one jump and landed in her seat and just started shaking like that. And so, man, I go over and, I've got her sitting there. I just close the door. I don't close it all the way, but I go back and get my stuff and threw it back in and took off back. And that was scary because he meant business. For whatever it was, people say they don't like dogs, they don't like big dogs, and they don't like black dogs. Most of the time when you've got a dog like that, it doesn't end good for the dog, But this was, me and my wife rescue dogs. So you know how that was going to be on my conscience, something like that happened. So anyway, I called my son at Memphis Dental School, and he goes, don't you dare let my dog get killed. And I said, ain't going to happen. You got to kill me first. But we left, and it was really scary because so I had PTSD several more times when I went down there, and to look around. I mean, when you've got an area that turns hot, you've got tracks and stuff, you need to go back there if you're really serious about trying to have a sighting or find footprints and things. So I went back several times. Like I said, I was armed, and then I tried to take somebody with me when I could. There's strength in numbers. For sure. If you're there by yourself, more things can happen to you. You can have somebody there that can keep an eye out for you. They can help you look for snakes because, man, we got a lot of snakes down here too. So you have to look for that right there, then have somebody else kind of watching, your back door, quote, so to speak. But those two right there were really scary. And then 2 years ago, I had one, I went to set up some cameras, and one ran down the hill. And man, when he did, you could see him in the brush. He was going, you could hear him popping brush over there, but I was setting up my camera, and I, kept an eye on him. I had a couple of pistols on my hip, kind of like Doc Holliday. I had 2 of them just in case. And so he's cool as he can be, man. He sits there and he watches me for a while, and you can see him moving through. You can see the bushes move, but then he walks back up the hill, and he's, doesn't even come back, doesn't pay any more attention. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to, this is one I'm going to be able to not habituate, but at least he's not going to be aggressive with me. I come back 2 days later. That was not the story. He ran down the hill this time, and whenever he did, he was mad, and he growled, and he shook limbs. and things like that. And he stomped in there, and I'm like, I better get out here. So I backed up the hill. Like I said, I did just like Doc Holliday. I pulled both pistols, and I started walking back up the hill. And I was, a good 70 yards from my truck. So he had me if he wanted me. Because if you're 10 yards from your truck, they've got you if they want you, But he had me if he wanted to. So those 3 accounts right there, they're not teddy bears like everybody wants you to think. You look at the name that some of the Indians have. We've got 574 Indian tribes here in the United States. And look at the names that they've given to these Bigfoot, to some of these beings. They will tell you that that's not a teddy bear. It's not something that needs to be played with, So it's a real, you just kind of got to just judge for your own. But once you get used to them and they get used to you, I think, I feel totally safe whenever I'm down there. But we've been on this one particular group for 6 years here. And like I said, they just about every time. And that's the name of my next book is Searching for the Unfindable, Finding the Impossible, is finding an area there that we can go to and just about count on having some kind of activity every time we go. And that's the Lord's honest truth. So, and then that comes from, as we talked about the trust, we talked about habituation as far as getting down there and things like that. And that name was suggested to me by Duke Sullivan, Searching for the Unfindable, Finding the Impossible, because that's not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to be here, but they are. And that they can actually trust you, enough to allow you to be in their territory where they eat, they sleep, they've got their families and things like that. Pretty awesome thought, when you think about it. And it's not anything you do necessarily. It's more about them than it is about you. And once you realize that, I think that takes the edge off of your attitude or my attitude. Let's say my attitude.
We got 3.5 minutes to go here, just 4 minutes to go. Tell us about your Gugway encounter.
Man, boy, that was a good one. That was on March the 1st or March the 2nd. In 2000, I was down at the Keith Crabtree camp out down there at what's called Smith Park in Texarkana. It's a county. It's about 22 miles from Texarkana, right there about a mile from the river, right there from Sulphur River. And so I had been down there. Chrissy Seif, I was there, one of the speakers we had there at our conferences last year, and this last month there. And so several of us are there. So I had taken the Boy Scouts out to show the Boy Scouts, a little bit about Bigfoot hunting, show them some of the things I knew about the woods, about leaves, things like that. And so as we're down there, we find a track. And so I always carry plaster Paris with me, so I went to cast the track. But the ground was really wet because we'd had a lot of rain, and so it took it longer to dry. So I had to wait a little longer. I have church every Sunday night at 6 o'clock, and I'm like, shucks, man, I'm going to have to sit here and wait or miss church or come cover and try to come back. So I didn't want to do that. So finally, I get the deal dug up, and it's about 5:15. I'm on the way back, and on the way down there, I had seen a tree structure. It was like in the form of an X, let me get my arms about like that. And the top had 2 forks just like this on the top, and it was perfectly formed. Everything was equidistant from where the limbs crossed. So I wanted to stop and look at that. So I did. And as I'm sitting there looking, go ahead. If you need to go, Dave, we can finish up this story. If you need to finish up, if you need to do a commercial or something like that, I can finish it up when I get through. But have we got some time still?
Yeah, we got about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay, so anyway, I'm sitting right there, and I'm looking at this tree structure that he's built. And man, it's like I said, it's beautiful. Everything is just equal. What's on one side is on the other side. And I happened to just glance over, and I looked, and I saw something black running on all fours, coming up out of the bottoms right there. And I'm like, that's a dadgum hog, because it was big. It was really big. And of course, we got some hogs down here weigh 500 pounds. So I'm sitting there looking at it right there to see if I need to pull my pistol, try to shoot this hog. And whenever I do, all of a sudden, I'm like, well, that's a Bigfoot. So he's running right there, and he comes, probably he's 40 to 50 yards behind me, and just runs, and he slows down, and he kind of starts trotting along there on all fours. And I'm still thinking it's a Bigfoot because I wasn't familiar with Gugway at that time. And so I looked, and I thought, man, that's a weird-looking Bigfoot. So I took off. He kind of went into some brush. I took off running to try to catch up to him. So, and I already had my phone out and everything else like that. And like I said, I only had a 40 caliber Glock pistol. But I'm sitting there, and I go up there, and as I'm walking down this trail right there past a cedar tree, for some reason they knock down these cedar trees, and they'll strip them like what you and I've talked about before, about some of the limbs and stuff. And I look over there behind this log, and there's this Gugway, and there's some roots like this right here, and he's got his head stuck in between these 2 roots, and he's waiting on me to come through there. He's going to kill me. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to kill me. And so he's sitting there just looking at me like that. And so he kind of raised his head a little bit, and his ears were forward. Well, then he turned his head, and he looked, and the ears went back like that. And I thought, oh crap, he has got a a hunting partner with him. So whenever he did that right there, man, I had my phone out. I said, I got those 3 pictures, and then I took off running back to my truck. Called my buddy, told him about it. He wanted to go back the next day, but I couldn't do it, Dave. I was PTSD, scared to death, because I'd never had a Gugaway encounter. But I got the pictures, sent him the pictures, and he has 2 monitors on his desk. He said, he's there. I'm like, yeah, I know he's there. I watched him get there. Now, what are we looking at? So, again, I talked to Duke. I talked to a friend of mine who's a Native American. And I said, man, what do you know about a Gugaway? He goes, oh, Will, please don't tell me you've been messing with them things. And I said, no. I said, but I had one run up on me from the bottoms right there. He said, did he turn his head and look and kind of wiggle his ears? And I said, yeah. I said, how'd you know? He said, because that's their way of signaling to the other Gugaway there. So he was probably fixing to be supper. So coincidentally, go ahead.
Hold that thought, Will.
Okay.
Because we're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. More Gugaway, more Sasquatch, more William Lunsford when we return on Spaced Out Radio.
This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear, and Will, we got about 6 minutes here, just under.
Okay. All
We're
right.
going to turn things over to Dirty Filth here.
Okay.
He has a new show that's going to be premiering on our YouTube channel. Dirty Filth, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Dave. Don't forget to feed the dog man when you go out. Yeah.
Hey, Dirty, how are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Thank you.
This is a picture of Sasquatch eating a Saskatoon berry pie on a log. And he stole the pie from Grandma's windowsill.
You know, that happens a lot more than what people want to truthfully add to. Food starts missing from around the house.
Yeah, I originally did one yesterday, the exact same drawing, but my cats decided to get a little bit angry, and, well, they spilled water on it, and it was clawed up a little bit, so they obviously weren't happy with something with it. But I also have to say that starting Saturdays, 2 o'clock Pacific time, I'll be live on Spaced Out Radio drawing some cartoons for about an hour or so, or however long it takes, and I'll talking about the price of pickle juice and how to defend against angry Sasquatches, things like that. So,
Pickle juice is one of the things I carry with me to the Bigfoot woods there, man, because you'll start getting some cramps. That's one of the only things that'll save you right there is pickle juice. So I carry pickle juice with me. There's a guy down here in Arkansas that draws Bigfoot cartoons like that, and he actually has a book out now of those cartoons. Have you ever thought about doing that and putting it in a binder or something like that and making a little extra cash on the side?
Oh yeah, I got one book out. I'm working on the second one. Ow, cats!
Good deal.
But yeah, it was all about aliens and Bigfoot and junk like that. It's called Crypted Cartoons.
Oh.
You just type in Crypted Cartoons. It'll be the first thing that comes up in Google, and it's by Klaus Meidner.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a green cover with a gray alien on it.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, and I got the second book on the way, except I had some technical difficulties with some of my stuff, so that's all right though.
I've got a second book there that should already been done, and I lost about a month worth of computer service here. I didn't get to finish it. I would have had it going, and so then we had to just go buy a new computer and try to get them to try to catch it to load up and everything. It's always something, you know. So, but at least you got your stuff back, man. That's good drawing, man. And
Thanks. I appreciate it.
It is, man.
Oh, hey, I got a dog man here too. Check this out. It's a dog man plushie.
Hey, dog man is real, buddy. I've seen him. We saw him from about 60 yards away, actually leading 3 Bigfoot up a hill one day, and then there was a mama and a juvenile. That's great, man. You need to add on that dude right there, man. Add you some.
A friend of mine makes those. We've been collaborating with them. Her name's
wow.
Fox Vegas, and yeah, she does all types of horrible, deplorable stuffies, and yeah, she's quite talented at what she does, to say the least. I'm always surprised. She's been turning my cartoons into plush animals, and everyone that I see just gets better and better. And I think I owe her a plate of chicken wings or two.
Hey, you guys are with the right guy, buddy, to help you get it going right there. Dave's man, he is such a good guy with the natural vibe that he has with people. I saw that this last month down there at Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, and he didn't meet a stranger, and they didn't meet him as a stranger. So you've got the right guy there with you to help you through for sure.
Yeah, he's good stuff. I think I might have to go to the next Nebraska conference there, because one of my best pals lives in Omaha, and I owe him because he came up for my wedding a couple years ago. Oh, geez, like 10 years ago now. Oh, crap. Anyway, yeah, he came up for my wedding and everything, and yeah, so I've always got to go back down there and hang out with him one day. And if you're listening to me, Bob, I'll buy you some whiskey when I come down.
Yeah, this Dave, man, I was so happy to hear that he was in. He had his Bigfoot sightings and had some experiences down there. And he's done so much to help so many of us. As far as with the venue that he's got, and so man, that he's getting to see this right here, man. The enthusiasm that he carries with it is always good. When you see some people, man, they're not. I'm like, my hair's on fire because I really enjoy doing this. Well, Dave's got that same kind of enthusiasm. That's infectious with other people. So you've got the right guy. Get on down to Nebraska. I'm going to be there next year, as a matter of fact. I'm going to be there as a speaker. So good Lord willing. So I'll get to meet you down there.
Yeah, if I do, I'm going to definitely bring my stack of paper and pens and pencils and everything and paint up a bunch of stuff while I'm down there.
Yep.
Yeah. I've never seen any Sasquatch, but a friend of mine has seen an albino Sasquatch and her baby.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was interesting.
Well, I've got some white ones on my research area, and we got one last year. We got two of them, actually, two babies walking by, and so my lights on my camera are really, really bright. We've got the cameras inside some hollowed out logs there that my friend of mine had made, and sure enough, the lights are so bright that the baby Bigfoot has his fingers up like this right here, trying to keep it.
All right, guys, I got to shut it down. Dirty Filth, what time on Saturday?
2 p.m. Pacific.
2 p.m. Pacific. All right. Thank you, T-Bone times 2 and Mike for the super chats. Here we go with the next hour. All right, we're back talking Bigfoot here in hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We'll get to William Lunsford here momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yawn. Yawn is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as a clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. William Lunsford is a longtime Bigfoot researcher. He is somebody who has had more than 50 encounters with this amazing creature. He's an author. You can find his books on Amazon. I highly recommend you check him on out. He's one of the good guys in the field. William, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Man, I'm so glad to be here, man, to be here with everybody to share these stories. And again, to kind of open up the it's not necessarily a portal, but to the fact that you've got people here that are regular old people, just like I am. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Yeah, that you can get in here and have encounters. Again, I may not be the best Bigfoot researcher out there, and sorry, don't claim to, but I guarantee you there's nobody out there that works any harder than what I do to bring and then to share with what I've got with other people. Dave can tell you, he got to see, I think, some of the things I had on my phone, some of the pictures I had there at the Nebraska conference, and very, 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 very cool. And that's what we were talking about before we broke there about the pictures of the doggone Gugway. Man, I took off running and up the hill. I have 2 metal knees, and at that time, I guess I was probably probably 60 or 61 years old, man. And see an old man running up a hill with a pair of boots on there when it's slick and trying to get away from a gugway was I'm sure pretty laughable. But they are there. There's that. I didn't even know I knew there was such a thing, and people said there was, but I based all that on what I'd heard from my friend, like I said, who was a Native American, and he, talking about some of the things that that they had there. They have a lot of it's not just because it's folklore doesn't mean it's not true, folks. So that's just on it. So he has a lot of things that he had told me about, and that was one of them. And I didn't know anything about it, but whenever I saw that one right there, it changed the way I do things. So, and I had a 40 caliber Glock pistol. That was it. Well, the good thing that happened was my son, I told him the story. Well, he had already ordered me a early Father's Day gift, a 45-70 Marlin rifle. So he gave it to me, and that dude was shooting lengthwise through a buffalo. So he gave it to me. Me and Randy Crawford, the man I mentioned a while ago, we went back down there. We took about 60 pictures, took every kind of comparison you could find two structures that the Bigfoot will, and I'm sure Gugway too, will actually hunt. They'll actually put a bunch of brush together and stuff like that, and they'll use it to jump out of on these animals. And so we actually found 2 tracks while we were down there of the Gugway where they had been on this trail doing the same thing. And so I haven't seen another one that's that close, and I'm glad I haven't because the way his demeanor was just enough. It was only way I can describe it is sinister. Like, I'm fixing to get you, and there's not anything you can do about it. And according to Christy Sci-Fi there, Christy, and according to Robin as well there, Robin Haynes there, that we have Gugway on our other area up there around our main area, not main area, one of our main areas up there in a little bit northern Arkansas. So that's kind of scary too. So you got to be prepared. I think that Dogman again gets credit for a lot of the Gugway mischief that they do as far as the killing and things like that. We have seen I've probably seen 5 different Dogmen. We got a picture of one there about 60, 65 yards away, leading 3 Bigfoot up a hill. And then there's a mama and a juvenile staying back behind that are going down the edge of the tree plantation, but they're walking right up the hill. And my research partner, Stephen, thank goodness he had the good eye, because I was still trying to set up some of our SD cards for our next camera, and he goes, "Stop." And well, he and I are always goofing around with each other. I said, "What am I doing?" He goes, "No, stop." So I stopped, and he points down there. Well, here comes that dadgum Dogman. He's about 7 foot tall, 6.5, 7 foot tall. He looks more like a hyena on stilts. Wow. As far as the head that he has. I mean, his head is much more. It's not like the one that you've got the real long tufts of hair ears, but this one wasn't. But he was walking up the hill, and like I said, there's 3 Bigfoot right behind him. Well, all of a sudden we stop. They see us stop. The Dogman stands there. You see a baby Dogman run and get underneath a leaning log like that right there. And then the Bigfoot that are behind him just, and all of a sudden you can't see them anymore, but you can see the mama that's leading the baby away from there. So we sit right there, and finally the thing just did the same way. After it stood there, it just squatted kind of down into the tall grass and was gone. But I'm like, oh my gosh. But the ones we've seen, we've got other Dogmen there that have not offered to hurt us at all as far as that goes. But then the Gugway, the first time, I think truly he was running out of that bottom, and I think he was running out of that bottom to kill me. And I believe that. And that's what my Indian friend told me. And I mean, he's got his culture has got a lot of experience with him. So again, that's one of them deals where I'm now more prepared than what I was. They say, be prepared, expect the unexpected. The hillbillies around here, where I live, they put it this way. They say, don't get caught with your britches down. Well, however you want to have it like that right there, man, you want to be careful. And so with that right there, that Gugway, I actually put a picture of it there on, I did a show with Travel Channel called These Woods Are Haunted, and put a picture of that Gugway on there. And actually hiding over there underneath that log. And then also had one there that I put a mama Bigfoot, and she's got a baby here in the middle, and she's leaning out behind the tree. And so she's seeing that right there. So I actually got to share those with a nationwide audience there of as many as ever watched the show from These Woods Are Haunted. But that was pretty eerie right there, because something you're not familiar with, you just don't know how they're going to react. I don't want to slip up and accidentally shoot a Bigfoot being scared of a Dogman, or being scared of Gugway. So I'm going to have to be a little bit careful, kind of like they say, what was it? Andrew Jackson said, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes, or at least be sure of what you're aiming at, is basically what I'm saying. So that adds a new dynamic to it. You want to be extremely, extremely careful, because that's one of the deals we talked about as far as a while ago, is something trust that you don't violate with Bigfoot. You do that right there, and buddy, you've blown it, and you may not get out of there, just depending on how they interpret that action. So But those are some of the scariest encounters that I've had. And that Gugway, he meant business. I mean, you can see the snout. He's got a snout. And like I said, when the ears were first down like that, and then he took them back like that and did this number like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And any doubt that what I was looking at was real as a matter of fact, I got chill bumps right now. I even think about it. Any doubt I looked at that was real, it was gone. It wasn't gone. It didn't even start, but I knew right then I had something there that I wasn't familiar with. So kind of a strange deal. Those strange stories, things can happen. I mean, it's one of those, it's like going on a fishing trip. Things can happen that'll kind of turn your trip to the bad. So again, being really, really careful like that. But I still, it's made me wiser. And again, to know that, again, as I said about my friend who's a Native American, that these, just because they have folklore doesn't mean it's not true. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean Dave hadn't seen it. When Dave says he's in the same way with him and me. So again, that's something right there that I kind of want to share with everybody right there, because somebody tells you something that's happened or they've seen something and you haven't seen it. And that don't mean nothing. I've got guys down here, according to that theory, oh, well, there ain't no such thing. And how come I ain't never seen one? I've been in the woods all my life. Well, you ever seen a 10-point buck on the way to your stand? Well, no, I never. How about a rattlesnake? You ever seen a rattlesnake on your way to your stand? Well, no. I said, according to your theory, they don't exist. Well, I guess you're right. Yeah, exactly right. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not there. And folks, there's things in this world. I learned this. I was raised in a very conservative Christian family and still am a Christian man. Very happy and proud to say that. But I had no idea there were things out there that exist that we get. I've got 10 game cameras out right now. Sometimes I get stuff on that game camera there that just scares me to death. I showed one of my friends there a picture that we got, and it looks like a doggone gargoyle. And the teeth are all just nasty like that. And he's looking to the camera like that. I showed it to my friend. And he like to have a heart attack. He goes, "That's a demon. That's a demon. Get it away from me," And so I, turned it off. And he goes, "Oh my gosh," I'm like, well, evidently demons are real. Yeah, but if he is, he better, stay away from me, or he's going to go home with some britches full of lead if I have to. But so that was really to see things like that I didn't believe were real. Or didn't thought maybe during their time had passed out, and there's things out there that are out there that we just don't understand. So I say that only as not to scare anybody, but as a deal, just again to be aware, and always be on your toes.
Before we get some audience questions, what is your funniest encounter with a Sasquatch?
Oh man, I've had some doozies down there. I had one day where we was talking about them just standing still, and so I was walking down there, and I didn't have a whole lot of time that afternoon, and so as I was walking down this gravel road down there, he was over there hiding behind a tree, and I didn't know it, and I had never seen one. This is probably 50 yards off of a main road right there, and so I'm walking down there. I'm trying to maximize my time. I've got tunnel vision trying to get this stuff done. And as I cross past this one tree there, not paying any attention, all of a sudden he takes off running behind me, crosses the road. And folks, I nearly wet my pants. I was not ready for that right there to happen. And he took off and he went down there about 50 yards. And then we played peekaboo. He'd lean out behind the tree and I'd lean back. Then I'd lean out behind the tree like that. And we did that right there. So we did that probably, maybe 5 minutes, something like that. And that was pretty doggone funny. We have had them down there where we would leave them fruits and stuff like that. And we had left one of them a baseball bat to knock on trees. Bigfoot knocks on trees to communicate, to do whatever. And so, so you can hear it. So we left one. My son's was really strong. And so he broke the handle. So he goes, well, let's just leave this Bigfoot, this bat right here. So we left it there. And so we leaned it up against a tree. We put a couple of pears in this other tree there so that this Bigfoot there, we can kind of, bring him in. It's kind of a gifting situation like we've talked about before. Well, I go the next day up there and then it's gone. So I called my son in his dental office. I said, we're going to have to go on a scavenger hunt. So whenever I get home there after that, he gets home, we go back down to the woods and we're looking around. Finally, we go behind this one tree that's about 40 yards away. And as we get over there, we find the bat. Well, the bat, instead of having the barrel on the ground and the handle up top, the barrel had been placed skyward, and then the hand was on the ground, and he had taken 2 of the pears that we had left, just took a bite and just threw it on the ground like, that's just what I think of you. So we just, interpreted it as a message, but it was so funny because he didn't take any more bites than that. Like, you're going to act like that, leave me a broken bat, I'm not going to eat your fruit. So that was pretty funny right there, because it was you could almost see the determination that he had put in there. Like, I'm going to teach you a lesson, give me something like this. Then I had one day that was down there, and I don't know if it was a male or a female, but it was a smaller one. And so as I was climbing up the hill, I had been walking down along the edge of the riverbank, and so as I was climbing up the hill, right as I got to the top, he was just fixing to come back down. Well, whenever he did, we saw each other at the same time. So I stopped. But when I did, I tried to stop too much. I ended up slipping. It fell down on my rear end right there on the edge of the on the edge of the riverbank. And I don't tell people that very much. I'm actually pretty graceful, but that right there was enough that I couldn't get my mind on. He took off running, and I mean, it was like he said, yeah, I'll teach you to try to sneak up on me. But that's one of the things that does happen. We've got one there. Like I said, she follows me up there in one area there, and Stephen and I will joke around that she's actually my girlfriend. And I went up there and parked one day, and then I left, and Stephen comes back about 10 minutes after I left. He didn't know I was there, and he said, have you been up here? We call it Ground Zero. And I said, yeah, how'd you know? And he goes, take a look. So anyway, he sends me a picture, and sure enough, I have 2 metal knees, so I have to get out and kind of pigeon-toed like that onto the ground so as not to slip. So I do. But right in between my 2 footprints right there, there's that female's track. Like, I'm coming to check you out. So that was we both had a pretty good joke about that. But they are really, really, really smart. We've had them go in there and get separated from their group. And so when they do, the group will sit there and they'll start making a lot of noise. They'll start shaking trees, throwing rocks and stuff. So you're concentrating on them. So whichever one has gotten away from the group will actually just cross around. The next thing you know, they're together and off they go, and they're like, got you that time. So, but that's a very, very common thing that they happen. So again, the thing there where I actually slipped, like I said, and then if it would have been a big one, I could end up in the river, but I just slipped. And as soon as I got up, finally got myself back up, and the thing was gone, but that's had a pocket full of mud as far as that went. But they're very, very, we're their entertainment. It's almost like sometimes you can see them with a grin on, like Harry and Henderson's, I got you. So, but they're very, very, not accommodated to us, but I think that they're not going to hurt us as of yet unless we do something really, really stupid. And it may be that big female that follows us around that keeps her from getting the males that comes around and messes. But those right there are some of the it may not you might have just had to been there when you do. But like I said, when the one runs past you, like I said, like to scare me out of my wits, because when you see a Bigfoot, you're not. It's not that you're not expecting. Like I told my friend Daniel, sometimes it's easier to believe in Bigfoot when you've never seen one than when you've got one standing in front of you because of the size, because of so that was one of those things right there. So so it's quite funny. And but then I don't ever take it in there where I'm going in there just to cut up, because so many things can happen the wrong way, and I don't want to have that being a sign of disrespect to them as well. Like, oh, you just taking us for granted. Well, and so that's the truth. That's kind of the attitude that you want to have. And one of the funniest things that ever happened, the first sighting I ever had, Bigfoot can actually do what's called infrasound. And infrasound can make you incapacitated with your body functions. And so I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I'm good. When I finally got to where I could run away, I had about 1.25 to 1.5 miles to run away to get back to my vehicle. Got back to my vehicle, didn't realize it, but I had actually wet my pants. Didn't know it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to explain this? Guys, I was potty trained at 17 years old, I'm telling you. But it was something that I just didn't think of. And so then I learned, about infrasound and things like that. And that was one right there. I wanted to run. I couldn't run. But sure enough, whenever I got back there, it's like, yeah, I'll teach you to come back down here to my territory. So again, I hate to tell that on myself, but that's, if you're going to take the good, you're going to the bad, you're going to take the good too, and that was, so it was quite a learning experience. We've had infrasound several times. Infrasound is something that tigers have it, lions have it, elephants have it. They can actually be used to find artillery. Our military uses the infrasound to find artillery. As well. So it's got it, but it can also incapacitate you. And I have one zap my buddy, my research partner, and he was actually laying on the gurney fixing to have a shot of adrenaline to his heart because it had actually almost stopped his heart. And then I had another man, it knocked him down. He was squirrel hunting on his own property. And he went down there one week and it set him down. He thought, oh gosh, man. He said, I just don't feel good. Well, the next week he went again. So sure enough, it laid him down on the ground for a little while. He saw me at the Chevy dealership, and he goes, "You still doing Bigfoot?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Can they do something to you to incapacitate you with your feelings?" I said, "Oh yeah." Well, he told me this squirrel hunting story. He said, "Man, I couldn't get up." He said he had me if he wanted me, And I said, "Well, he made, they tend to know sometimes who's laying there on and who's they're not. They've seen you, whether you haven't seen them or not. They have seen you, and that is a promise. They have seen you." So that's
we got about 5 minutes to go before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
Researcher William Lunsford is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. William, I want to talk quickly about gifting, okay? Because I hear a lot of people, they leave bags of apples, they leave
Right.
peanut butter jars, they leave
Right.
toys, they leave coins, marbles, whatever it may be. What has been successful in your trading of items with these creatures, number one? And number two, how do you know it's actually them who you're trading with and not maybe another person in the area or a crow or a raven that likes shiny objects?
Well, that's a good question, because crows are a pain in the tail. A lot of times we get up there and we'll go out and we'll set out candy bars and stuff like that. And we don't get 20 feet and there's already a crow back there trying to pick up your candy bars. But so we started trying around that right there. Carrying a pistol. If I see a crow back there, I'm going to shoot to kind of, scare him away. But crows are probably one of the three smartest animals that there are. You get crows, pigs, humans, and Bigfoot fits in there somewhere. And so you see the crows like that. But the places that we put them, we've actually got pictures of this baby Bigfoot that I was telling y'all about right there. He was coming in and we would find the tracks. He'd walk up there. But, a lot of times you see the tracks and all of a sudden there's not a Bigfoot there. But we've actually got pictures of this baby Bigfoot there in front of this log, in front of this stump right there, putting the things on there. And then as we do, then we'll find the tracks and we can follow him into the woods and then the tracks go. So we actually know that what we're actually dealing with right there. Sometimes it will leave that musty smell on there. Like David, like talking about over a while ago, like the member here talked about, I smell something's got it right there. Well, as far as that, because they have that, sometimes that sulfur smell, and you can pick it up and you're like, that wasn't there before, so you can tell it's been a Bigfoot there because of the smell they have. They don't always have that smell, but they like whenever they do, I've got pictures of some there that were picking up my cameras. And so I told Steven, my research partner, I said, this dang thing is picking up my camera. And this funny thing, they're just as smart. He was putting it back and it was almost to the very same angle, just not quite. And so I told Steven, I said, I'm fixing to get this joker. So I put it down there, and whichever way the lens was, I put a stick, like a pointer stick. So like right here's the lens, here's the pointer stick, so I know which way it's turned. When we come back, then the next time that we come back up there, the stick is turned like this. And I said, we've got him. Sure enough, get the camera, put the SD card in, and I got Bigfoot biting my camera right there. And so what we had known, from seeing the tracks coming up and things like that, he's actually, you can see inside, you see 4 teeth right here in the middle. You see a space right there, and that space is called the primate space. Whether they're a primate or not, I don't know. Nobody does, but I know it was really interesting. And then they got a canine there, but the canine's just about this much longer than the rest of the teeth. And he's got his mouth wide open. Well, then at the first of this year, then I got a picture of one that actually has motion blur. And usually we just hide our cameras we put brush piles in there, and we'll put some kind of bait in front. Well, because I was having so many that were actually stealing and moving, I started tying it in. Well, I've got a picture this year of some of the prettiest white teeth you've ever seen. One of them's kind of chipped a little bit. Very, very healthy set of gums. But this Bigfoot is trying to chew this strap off of my camera. And you've actually got motion blur on this picture right here that you can see in this Bigfoot. So, and I don't think can have that. They've got teeth like horses, about like sugar cubes. They're just about that big. And so the fact that I was there and knowing this area like I do, I knew what I was getting. And sure enough, I've got the pictures of the Bigfoot doing that right there. So that's very rewarding when you can't actually outsmart one. I had one that was going by there and I could see his trail, and then he would get to the camera and he wouldn't be there. Well, finally I saw where his feet were landing when he was jumping across his trail. So I took my camera and tilted it over a few more degrees like that right there, backed it up so I could get a more panoramic view. Next time I come, I've got a picture of a 9-foot Bigfoot crossing, jumping across the trail right there. So again, it's one of those things that where you have some of the experience with these animals, and not just those, but any other kind of animals like that, you're kind of able to put two and two together and rely on the things that you've learned. And so that's how I know that. I truly don't believe I'm wrong on any of these things so far. You know, I'm not a snap judgment kind of person, so I tend to wait and make sure. And whenever I find out this right here, yep, well, it worked out just like. And I've got pictures of it. I'm like, I'm like a shutter bug. I carry my cell phone with me, and because I need my hands I don't carry a big camera like that right there because I need my hands clear in case I have to, actually shoot a hog or something like that. But pretty neat stuff right there because, like I said, so far I've been right, and I've got the photographic evidence to show you, and I've got 4 pictures of Bigfoot. I've got one where a Bigfoot's actually got the camera inside his mouth facing that way.
William, we're going to get you to hold on right there. When we come back, we're going to get to audience questions. So we've got another half hour with William Lunsford, Bigfoot researcher out of Arkansas. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. Good job, bud. That was amazing.
It's all true, Dave. I mean, like I said, you saw the evidence that I have there, and it's not because I'm a great researcher. Like I said, I pride myself in working as hard as being a hard worker. But when you get the results right there, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you start sharing it with people, I've probably made believers out of 50 or 60 people just by, like they say, the big eye don't lie, and they're like, oh my gosh, man, I swore everybody, this wasn't true. Well, now and of course, some of them I've taken back out with me after that. They're like, Daniel, the boy from Alaska, he called me from Alaska, and he goes, you're not lying, are you? And I said, no. He said, you know how I can tell? I said, no, how's that? And he goes, because nobody can lie that fast. He said, you talk so fast. Well, I do, being an ex-UPS man, I had to get everything said, and to get it said the amount of time I had. So anyway, that's pretty funny too. But boy, Daniel's going to be a great researcher too. He's been he actually took a drone. He actually got a picture of one on a drone flying across one of the open clear cuts that we have right there, just kind of looking down. But it's a still picture. He didn't have the video deal going. But boy, he's been just a really, really big help. And we actually took Robin with us one time, Robin Haynes. And he had it on phone. So we're down there right as we're having all kinds of Bigfoot activity. And there's baby Bigfoots over here just making all kinds of noise, that gibberish noise. And so we stop and we're waiting. And Daniel said, what I need to, I said, just take some pictures, man. So sure enough, we take some pictures there. He's talking to Robin. Robin lets us know that there's a rattlesnake up there about 50 yards ahead up there, that she can tell is up there. And so as we're taking pictures, I said, well, show me some of them pictures, man. Send them to me. So he does. And sure enough, I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I consider myself to be a very observant researcher. But as I am from watching these babies over here, I look ahead in this picture, and about 40 yards ahead, there's a Bigfoot leaning out, just looking at both of us right there. I mean, craziest thing I ever saw. You can't help but just laugh, I mean, and he's just as interested, and there might be another one with him. And then when he finally ducked his head and he took off, we waited probably about 5 minutes. And then he blasted us, just, man, it'll curl your hair. If you got any hair left, which I don't have much of, but what I did have was it turned it white. So that was pretty doggone cool. But so like I said, it's good to have a friend, made a friend with him. And he's very, very good with this. And boy, he's just eat up with it. And, if you're going to have a hobby, it may be something like it doesn't hurt anybody, as far as that goes. And it's whenever we go in there to ground zero, and sometimes you can feel the hair on your neck from the infrasound just sticking up. First time I took him in, he goes, "Oh my gosh, this place is electric." I said, "Oh yeah, we're going to have some activity." I think we saw 3 that day, and then the next day went in there, and there were 7 young juveniles out there by a tree, and I've got a picture of them over by that tree. So it's a little further off, just right there off the road, maybe 40, 50 yards, but the pictures are there, and the big eye don't lie. So I'm just very fortunate, man. Like I said, I enjoy this, and good Lord has let me see them, and so far they haven't had an attitude with me. They haven't offered to hurt my wife or my son, except for that one night where that one came in. Like I said, I think it was a young juvenile. and having, a female there with us, it tends to change the dynamic. And so it did. But other than that, man, just been, I never thought, I didn't believe in him until I walked up on him when I was 17 years old. And then it took you forever because you didn't have a pigeonhole to put it in to say, yes, these things are actually real. Well, then 8 years later, I saw another one. And whenever I did, he was down on a boat ramp. I had my nephew with me. And I'm like, oh, gosh, man. So right then I realized, hey, these things are in my territory. If I'm going to fish and I'm going to hunt down here, I need to learn something about them. So I did. And it's the rest of it is just history. So I hope to get to do this forever. As long as I can still walk. I've got 2 metal knees. That's kind of a pain in the butt every now and then, but I've got those metal knees. And so, but again, the walking, sometimes I'll walk. If things are good, man, I'll walk 5 or 6 miles knowing I got a long way to go, but doggone it, for one Bigfoot sighting, it's worth, it's what would you give cash wise? What I basically give $100 for a great Bigfoot sighting. The one I had there on March the 25th, a couple of years ago, I had 2 7-foot twin brothers, or I say brothers, walking down the side. It could have been females, but they're walking down. And so the wind is blowing so strong, they can't hear me drive up. And so I'm kind of going slow anyway. So they're walking down the doggone edge of the trail. One of them puts his hand on the other and shoves him like a brother, like 2 brothers do walking down. They, kind of bowed up at each other. They kept walking. Well, finally, here comes Stephen. And Stephen's got this big dually. And so they can hear Stephen coming. So they just start walking to the woods. And whenever Stephen drives up, I'm just laughing. He goes, please don't tell me. I said, okay, I won't tell you. And so, but sure enough, we're out there in the field. I've got one of those game cams that send you signal back to your cell phone. All of a sudden, we start getting signals on the cell phone. And there's 7 Bigfoot out there in the middle of the field.
Hold on right there, my friend. We're coming back in 10 seconds. Thank you, sweet Tony D, Timmy, T-Bone with a hat trick, Mike, and Candace for the super chats. Really appreciate your love and support. Don't forget, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can find it on our website. Here we go. We are in the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. We have our good friend William Lunsford till the top of the hour. We're going to get to some audience questions, talking Bigfoot tonight. You can find his book on Amazon. William, thank you for being here.
Man, so honored and proud to be here. I'm grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to do that. You know how much I love it, and I hope that's evident to everybody. To see that it's something right there that's really changing my life, and it has made it for the better. So I appreciate that. Enjoy getting to share with people that these things are real, and hopefully somebody that will take just one tip I've given them and will help them have their first sighting. So that's pretty doggone neat. We're here about it here. We're on Spaced Out Radio. We could space out the Jetsons, and you know how long ago that was. I'm a child of the 60s. They wouldn't have a chance, buddy. We own the night, and we can loan them some of the day, too, if we need to. Can't we, Dave?
That's right. Let's start off with Mike here. Has Bigfoot ever shown you their newborns, ever? The ones you keep in contact with?
Yes, actually, believe it or not. They tended to come up anytime I'll have my wife with me. She's got a call that is just so perfectly on note that she'll go down there and she won't do it around people, but she'll do it with me there and Stephen right there. And she'll call and you can hear them coming up. And so they'll actually have their babies right there with them. And so they'll sit there. We got a picture of one there that's kind of got the baby kind of stuck out like that right there. And you can see that it's actually showing that we have their babies. There's a video that's on their that you can find on the internet, and it's of a gorilla. I think her name's Kiki or something like that from Detroit. But anyway, there's a woman there. She has a newborn there. They got that big sheet of glass there, and so she's actually the gorilla that's in this deal is seeing this woman's baby. All of a sudden, the gorilla runs back to the back of the cage and comes back, and she's got her baby like this right here. And so her and this mother are having a moment together where, yes, I'm a mother, yeah, you're, and they're showing each other. People think I'm crazy until you look at that video. So get on there if you get a chance. Like I said, get on the internet, look. I think it's Kiki, but the mama baby, mama shows mama gorilla their baby, and it's the coolest thing. So they do. They show me that right there, and they're as proud of their kids, I think, as we are of ours. And but it's when you see those things, you realize there's a breeding population here of these things. And here's something else funny too, that from what we see down here in Arkansas, they tend to have their babies about November and December and right at the 1st of January. But a healthy Bigfoot female, a lot of times will have twins. And that's pretty neat. So my wife's got a picture of one, and some of those that she saw, and she sees a black spot. She's got her camera down there. She takes a picture. We're on the way home. She goes, "What is this?" I stopped to look, and I said, "Well, you want good news or better news?" She goes, "Well, give me the good news." I said, "Well, you got a picture of Mama Bigfoot." She goes, "How do you know it's a Mama Bigfoot?" I said, "Here's the better news. She's got a baby standing there by each knee." Got that picture right there. This is cool as it can be. And he's got his little hands. You can see the little 3-fingered hands stuck out of the brush and stuff. So they do. They show them to you. And like I said, it's just, I think that they, after they trust you, I think that it's like, I want you to see this, So it does happen. And like I said, I've got the pictures to prove it. It's just the neatest thing in the world, to see. And then that's one reason too. I think that I haven't had any aggressive encounters up there around ground zero, really, because I think the babies kind of know who you are too. They're going to get close to you, or mom or dad might not let them get close, but they're going to show them to you. So yes, the answer is yes, definitely yes.
All right, let's move on to another question. Let's go to In the Studio. What do you know about the robot Bigfoot? Have you ever heard anything about these?
I've heard that some people are kind of developing those kind of things right there. Well, I'll tell you, I don't. It would have to be just really, really good. I've actually put out some decoys out there in the woods of Bigfoot, with some fur and stuff on it, fake fur and stuff like that. I think if you had a robot Bigfoot there and it actually went into Bigfoot territory, I think they would attack it and tear it up. I really do. I think they're just that territorial. But that's all, I've heard about it. I haven't seen anything yet. AI is going to kill me because I have a lot of Bigfoot pictures right there. And now anybody can do the AI. And so they can put the pictures together. So those of us who have real stuff, it's going to make it to where people doubt sometimes what you say. So this robot Bigfoot, I'm anxious to see how that turns out right there. I'm kind of reserving judgment on it yet, but they're doing all kind of things with animatronics right now. You see those robot dogs that go in there and working for the police, and then go in there and drag people out of cars, who've had wrecks and stuff. So anything is possible on that right there. But I don't think regular Bigfoot will accept those going into their territory. If they do, I think they're going to have a huge surprise. They're going to be wasting a whole bunch of money, because Bigfoot is, they're clannish. A lot of what they have looks like in their troop is maybe some of their own family. So I don't think it'll go with Bigfoot at all. That's just my opinion, but that's truly what I believe. Just from what I've seen, their troop, which is what you call them, or you can call where you want to call them, but right there, they're very protective of each other. And so I don't think it will go at all, just amongst them,
All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to Paramarv. You mentioned church a couple of times during the show. Any thoughts on Bigfoot from a biblical perspective? Some have suggested they are offspring of Nephilim. What's your thoughts?
Being a Bible believer, and that's something, L.A. Marzulli was a speaker at mine and your conference a couple weeks ago there, Dave. And, so it's possible. That's a lot that the Bible doesn't necessarily speak of. It gives us Nephilim there in Numbers 13. It gives us Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6, and it talks about the giants of Anakim and all those things like that right there. But it's a possibility. That's something we just don't know enough about yet, and it doesn't give us the full amount to speak of. But there's the Book of Enoch and things like that. So I would say it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't be able to say for sure. But I would say there's the things that we have as far as we know that they actually existed. There's no doubt about that. You can't believe parts of the Bible and not believe all the Bible, because the Bible claims that it's its own. It's actually the Word of God. It's its own commentary. And I'm not here to preach to anybody. I'm just saying that's what it does. So you would have to believe it. So I believe that, the Nephilim definitely existed. I don't understand how they, mated with the women, the daughters of men and things like that. But it could be the offspring of Nephilim like that right there. They were, I can't remember now what the darn names of them were. There's 3 different names the Bible calls them. But I can certainly see it being a possibility as far as that goes. I said Mars Lilywood or somebody like that might be more of a expert than I am. But like I said, I do believe it happened with all my heart. So
let's move on. Let's go to Matthew here. Are the Gugway the ones that don't like humans at all?
yes, it is, because like I said, they, there's so many different Bigfoot, the way they're ranked, as far as that stuff right there. And Duke was the first one that had told me about the doggone Gugway and stuff like that. But they tend to have, most of their teeth tend to be, instead of having no block teeth like Bigfoot have, they tend to have the sharper, canine style, ripping style. And then they say that the animal up there that killed the people up there at Land Between the Lakes was actually not a dog man, but actually was a Gugway, and that they sent a military unit up there, and they actually killed it and found the bodies and the creature up there in the middle of one of those caves right there. But Gugways, man, they're bad. Like I said, this dude, there is no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. And I'm not trying to sensationalize anything. He meant me harm quick, because when he come running up there, he was for me, and I had no idea. Because like at first I thought it was a hog, then I thought it was a Bigfoot, and then when I saw him over, and that head just kind of stuck there, just like that, and he's just almost his body's just definitely still, and his doggone shoulders are like this wide, man. He's just huge. But he meant me harm, and so they don't like humans, and again, from the people who we some of us all know and stuff that are more familiar with them than I am, as far as for some of the talking the Native American stuff. Don't mess with him. They say if you see Bigfoot, sit there, he'll be fine. If you see a dog man, wait a little bit, don't overreact. Just maybe he'll go on his way. So if you see a Gugway, pull out your gun, start shooting or run, one of the two, because he's gonna hurt you. So that's pretty good advice, I think.
I like it. Let's move on to Grant. Does Bigfoot choose who they let see them?
Grant, that's a good question. I've had a lot of people ask me, even at the Nebraska conference, they say, man, after you've seen Bigfoot for a while, does it mean that, they're more receptive to letting you see them? I believe that. I believe they are. I believe that whether it's a confidence that you give off like that, I don't know that they can, interrelate as far as, I saw him here and I saw him here, but whether it's a confidence that you give off as far as like, well, golly, this guy right here, or whether, like dogs. I was a UPS man 35 years. There were certain dogs, man, that would not let anybody walk up to them. And I could walk up to them and they would not even bother to hurt me. Whether it's something that you give off as a sense or something like that, I think that's it. And I think that's why they let you see them. They're not near as, because rarely are you going to see them if they don't want you to. Man, they've got so many ways to. Same way with the deer, man. Go out there deer hunting. I've been deer hunting, gosh, ever since I was a kid, and I'm 65 years old, fixed to be 66. And I've watched deer come up there and somebody coming down the road riding a four-wheeler, watch a couple deer, they just lay down. And then next thing you know, the four-wheeler goes by and they just stand back up. And you're like, oh, they just materialized. No, they were there the whole time. So I believe Bigfoot does choose who they let see him. I think that there's a way that they can tell that you're not going to hurt them, or that you're somebody who's maybe seen one again. That's one of the things I don't know, that if it's because after you've seen one, you get to see more of them. But that certainly was the case with me after I saw the first one, and then saw the second one 8 years after that, man. And of course, it's the area that I live into. There's a lot of Bigfoot down here, and so I think that has a lot to do with it. I really do. That's just my opinion. Now, some of these things are opinion, but that's the way because that's certainly, if you look at it, that's how it happened to me.
All right, let's move on to. Let's see here. Let's go back to Mike here for a second. What is your thought on people who see orbs in the woods? Then hours, days later, they end up seeing Sasquatch.
That's a really good question right there, because Mike, I've got some pictures there. I told you one of my friends has a Bigfoot on his property. We set some cameras up there on one of his shooting lanes up there. And then we start getting these orbs right there that are right there in front of the camera. I mean, like I said, they're plain as day. You can see them; they're perfectly round, and then some of them are real close, and some of them are back farther away. But then after that, a few days later, you go through there, and then you'll get an orb that appears to be actually in the shape of a Bigfoot body, and then you'll have a sighting after that. My friend did that this 2 years ago there with the young lady up there on his property. They had seen the orbs. They went back, and sure enough, and man, it messed her world up, because they left right then, and she drove home crying. It was like a newborn baby slapped by a doctor in a hospital. So it did. So it really, but the orbs are real, man. They happen. You've heard of these things that happen right there. And then the will o' the wisp. The will o' the wisp is a real thing. I promise you. Me and Steven had filmed it, and then all of a sudden, and that's supposed to be where there's something there. Then it calls you as a hunter into the woods, and it means to hurt you. But we film it, going there, and it's not there on film. But both of us have filmed it at the same time. So I think that happens. I really do. I wish I could explain that, but we do, and we've had that. Like I said, I've got pictures of the orbs on my phone, like I told y'all about the one where I have the game camera that sends stuff back to my phone. Right as the orb is right there, and it sends it back, and you look at it, and oh gosh, So the orbs are real too. There was a thing here in Arkansas called the garden ghost lights, and I got to see those, and man, they put on a show one night there, and they changed colors. They were on the railroad track. Man, he got killed on the railroad track. They claimed it was a ghost. I don't know whether it was or wasn't, but like I said, all of a sudden you just see a little bitty hole about like that, then all of a sudden it just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you've got an orb like this big, and then zoom, zoom, and then it's out, and then it blinks and it comes towards you. I had 7 D1 football players with me from my son's high school here in Texarkana, Texas, including Ryan Mallett, who quarterbacked the Razorbacks and Houston and New England and up there. And we took some of them kids up there, and the guys were so scared they were actually hiding behind their girlfriends. But these things were, putting on one of the best shows you've ever seen. And then all of a sudden they quit. We're like, well, it's time to go. We need to go back. So we had to park by a church. We turn around, and there this light is right there, just going back and forth in front of us, probably 20 to 30 yards away. That kind of spooked me too, right there. And I had my dog with me, and she was kind of acting. She wasn't scared, but she was just kind of acting like there's something here that's kind of weird. So, but we had that. I said, and dogs are good harbingers of that there's something out there that's just not real. So we finally got out of there. But those orbs are real. Those orbs really happen like that. And so that's something I can definitely believe that they end up seeing a Sasquatch. It could be the Sasquatch is attracted to the light, but whatever it is, it's definitely a real phenomenon.
Let's move on to another question. Let's go to Race Fan. Have there been any Bigfoot sightings in the White County area?
Yes,
my grandparents lived in the town of Beebe.
Yes, there have been up there. And you also have what's called the White River Monster, which is supposed to be almost like Arkansas's Loch Ness Monster. But yes, there's a lot of sight. You start getting up there to where White County is up there and towards into the mountains and things like that. There's a lot of sightings up there. And I've got some friends that live up there pretty close to Mountain View, and they've been having sightings for about the last 3 to 4 months and the last couple of years up in there. So there are a lot of sightings. Arkansas, believe it or not, has had a sighting in every single county. And not just Fouke down around here, but at least one in every single county. And so Arkansas is full of them, but it has a lot to do with the mountains. They're different up here. Different here in Fouke, they tend to be more aggressive. Those that are up there around the Ouachita Mountains, as you start going up in elevation, kind of going towards Missouri, and right there around Greer's Ferry and all those other things up there in the little town of BB, which has got the rodeo college up there. You get up in there, and they tend to be more calm, but there's a lot of sightings up in there. So I've never researched around there. I've just fished the lake up there, but it's a beautiful area, and I could certainly see them being there just as much as I could. Kids at a candy store,
That's awesome. Okay, let's continue on here, my friend.
Okay.
So we're talking with William Lunsford here. Bigfoot is the subject. Let's go to T-Bone. Have you ever encountered any UFOs while investigating?
I have seen the lights up there that all of a sudden the woods have just become aglow. Some people say, oh, well, that's just swamp gas. Well, it wasn't swamp gas. I didn't get to see the actual craft, so to speak, but I have a lady that was a friend of my mom's, and she was as truthful as she could be, and she was driving home from Dallas, Texas, and she was there on the interstate that night about 2 o'clock. She saw one that was hovering across the roadway there. And so she just stopped and watched it, and finally said it took off. Well, she got home and she went to bed about 30 minutes later, and her bedroom, according to her, was filled with light. And she looked outside and she could actually see the UFOs. Now, as far as that, the ones I've seen have been much higher up. Steven's got some pictures, my research partner, of some of those that are going up there. The difference is it's like these doggone drones they had. Everybody's like, you see the blinking red and green lights on there. If you see that, that's the United States. That's their rules, that you have to have the red and the green blinking lights and the white lights up there. When you see these things are going through and they don't have them lights, there's a pretty good chance that it's not something that we have around here. So if you see that, that's a almost a sure sign that what you're looking at is something that we don't understand for sure, unless the government has come out with some kind of deals where it's not, that they haven't told us about.
All right, let's go to Paramarv. Any sightings or evidence of Bigfoot using portals?
I have a friend named Keith Crabtree. Like I said, he played the monster in the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek. And Keith got a picture up there. It's a place that he and I have both researched before. But right by this tree, there appears to be something that's happening there. That something is, quote, materializing, unquote. But it's not clear enough for me to see and make a determination, because I don't know anybody that's really got a picture of a portal. So it could have been that we saw that. But Keith actually got that picture of that. And it's had me scratching my head every time we've looked at it, and I trust Keith with my life. So I believe there's things that they can do in that way right there. There's a lot of things, like I said, that we don't understand, and that's certainly one that I haven't had the experience with. Robin was able to tell us one day up there when I was talking about Daniel and I, and have the Bigfoot leaning out behind the tree. And she said, "You've got a portal up there on your left," but we didn't, get to see anything coming out of it or anything else like that. But that's certainly something I would love to see if we did.
Mike would like to know, why do you think some of the face features look more ape and others look more human in terms of genes?
I think it could be in terms of genes like that right there. Man, they don't. Everybody thinks they all have cone heads. They don't. There's some that have round heads. Me and Stephen call those hanks. There's some that have got more human-like features. It could be sometimes that the hair on the faces come out, or it could be like me. A lot of their hair is turned white, so it's not nearly as clear. Also, that it's like polar bears. Polar bears' hair is clear. It's not white, but it's able to bend the light. And so that some of it you can see, some of it you can't. You say, well, Will, that sounds silly. Well, you take a prism, which is a three-sided little instrument of glass, and you put white light through it, and it changes all into the 7 colors of the rainbow right there. So it's possible that Bigfoot hair actually does that right there. But we know for sure that polar bear hair and Bigfoot hair could be that way, therefore giving it the deal of where it looks more human-like or ape-like. But the first one I ever saw looked just like a giant gorilla, the one down there that I walked up on. But then I've got the one I told you about, the mama that's holding the one that's got the real pretty hair, and her nose, she looks almost like a proboscis monkey. Her nose goes way on down like that right there. She doesn't have near as much hair on the face and stuff like that. And so they do look more ape-like, but they don't all look the same. So it could be a species like what you're saying. It could be a term of genes, that what they have, but they don't all look the same. And so that's something right there that, so much of Bigfoot is speculation, except for the fact that they are real. You're not getting a bunch of people all over the place. Oh, well, you're having just mass hallucination. No, man, I know people who've been married for 50 years, have been close with their marital partner, everything else, share the same values and everything else too. Never have they had the same dream at the same time or all this other stuff like that right there. So what it is, I think it's just like I said, they have their own way. The way it comes out, it would depend on who they mate with, as far as that goes right there. The ones at Sulphur River look like gorillas. The ones in the mountain tend to be more, I'm not going to say human-like, but they tend to not have that gorilla look like the rest of them up there. So it could be genes, and that's a good thought. We'll know more about it as if we ever get ever find the body. Like I said, I'm not going to be one of these people say, oh, well, we got to get a body to classify them. No, man, there's just some things we're just better off not knowing if we got to kill something like that. Because I know for a fact they are very familial in the way that they carry their young, the way that they interact with the rest of the members of their troop. And I've seen that. So like I said, you wouldn't get me to kill one just so science can have a body. I don't believe much what science says anyway. Science comes up. Science, according to their definition, is according to what we've learned so far. Then the next year, something that was absolute is not absolute anymore. So you can't, if it's not absolute and it's not repeatable, then it's not science. So, according to their own definition. So until we find out more, that's one of the greatest mysteries, that there is Bigfoot, except for the fact that Bigfoot is real. They are real 100%. I put my soul on it. That they are real, and I've seen enough of them to tell you for sure. And they're different. They act, not all of them act the same. So I hope that kind of answers that a little bit. But it is something right there that it's very much a creature. And they'll. I had one show up last year about a mile here from my house. Scared me to death. The guy come working on my house. He goes, "Man," he goes, "You're the Bigfoot guy?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You're not going to believe me, but I actually found a track fishing this pond over here, and it's actually a children's ranch there." He said, "I was fishing that pond and found a big track right there at the children's ranch." I'm like, "Great, that's all I need now." But anyway, at least I won't have to drive so far to go Bigfoot. I know I'll have a little extra money to get me something to eat when I do. So
we got 30 seconds to go.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we're not going to have time for any more questions. But I want to say a big thank you to you, my friend, for coming back on the show. You are one of the best when it comes to just breaking it down to the simplicity of this creature we call Sasquatch. And do us a favor, tell everybody how they could get a hold of you.
Man, it's really look me up. We have some real bad computer service down here, but look me up on Facebook, William Lunsford, and you'll see me sitting there, and I've got this goatee, and I'm sitting there next to a cutout of the people from Duck Dynasty. So if you see that, just send me a message, and I'll try to answer as soon as I can.
William Lunsford, everybody. Coming up next, Swamp Dweller and Robin Haynes. We'll be right
Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Thank you, buddy.
Dave, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate being with y'all. I hope I've done your show justice, because that's my whole deal, is to give you the best of what I've got.
You were amazing. You
I
were
appreciate
amazing,
that.
brother.
It's all true, but
I know.
One guy told me, he said, "You're like the crazy uncle that lives in the attic in the rundown house at the end of the street." Well, good, man.
Perfect. Will, I got to let you go here, but we'll talk soon, okay, buddy?
Buddy, thank you. I'm going to go in there and get some sleep so I can get up early with my wife in the morning. I've got to run her to Hot Springs, Arkansas. So, buddy, I appreciate you. I love you, man.
Much love, my friend.
Hey, you too, bud. Thank you.
Take care. Williams Lunsford, everybody. He's a beauty. He's just a beauty. We'll be right back. All right. We got about a minute to go. If you have questions for Robin, now's the time to start putting them in the chat because we want lots of questions for Robin. And I have some questions for her as well because she's amazing. Hi, Robin. All right. We'll get to Swamp Dweller first. It'll be about 5 minutes for Swamp Dweller, and then, and then we'll bring Robin in. Just wait till your metric, Joe. That'll really screw you up. Thank you tonight to T-Bone with a hat trick, Candace, Mike, Tim, and Tony for the great super chats tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Here we go with hour 3. All right, here comes the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Swamp Dweller and Robin Haynes coming up momentarily. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yawn. Yawn is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. My family traveled a lot, only because we were a military family. If we had the choice, we would stay in one place forever. Now, because we traveled a lot, we had a fair share of stories. Us getting robbed, natural disasters, car crashes, but none like this one. And what makes it suspicious is that it happened to only me. It was January 14th in New York. I turned 9 in 5 weeks. So if anyone else had a birthday as a kid, you would know that I was hyped. It was already bad enough that I had anxiety and insomnia, so I would stay up nearly every night, and this night was no different. After a good dinner of spaghetti, I went straight to bed. My little brothers were already asleep and my parents were relaxing in the room watching TV. I tried to get some sleep by putting my head under the pillow. Every now and then I would peek at the clock. 9:01. 10:13, 11:20. I got up to check if my parents were still up. Sure enough, they were asleep, TV still on. I went back to my room to try to sleep more. It got cold fast. I looked outside and it was snowing lightly. I looked at my clock and it was 11:27. I got slightly annoyed at how I was unable to sleep. I flopped back on my bed and turned into a blanket burrito. I managed to fall asleep eventually. Then, I woke up terrified. I looked at the clock. It was off. I slowly walked to my clock to see if it was unplugged. It was still plugged in. I started to cry a bit. I then heard a noise outside. It sounded like a mix of a goat and a coyote. I looked outside. It was heavily snowing at this point. I couldn't see anything clearly, not even the houses on the other side. I then heard something fall and break downstairs. I started to have a panic attack. This happens rarely. I then instinctively took out my pocket knife my dad gave me when I was still in Cub Scouts. I quickly opened it and walked out the door. Something sounded like it was sprinting at my door with light footsteps, then slammed my door shut. It opens inwards. I ran back to my bed and held up my dog stuffed animal I named 10. I decided to man up, or little boy up, and ran to the door. I opened it and held my knife to the side. Nothing was there. I ran downstairs. Again, nothing was there. I went to the kitchen. Apparently, a bunch of my mom's spice shakers broke. I forgot what specific ones, but they were expensive. Fortunately, both of my parents are heavy sleepers. I looked at the microwave. No time. It appears that all the power was off. Probably from the snowstorm if I had to guess. My little brain decided to walk outside, for whatever reason. I put on shoes, a coat, and went to the back door. Nothing. Nothing at all was out there. I heard another noise, though. It was the same noise. It sounded like it came from the woods. I then went to the fence and peeked through a little crack in between the planks. I saw a dead deer laying down. I will not go into details, but it looked like a pile of ketchup mixed with squished up tomatoes. The smell was bad. It seemed fresh. I walked back to the porch very and reasonably disturbed. I sat down on a snow-covered chair. I was slightly shivering. I heard heavy footsteps coming from the woods, but as they got closer, they sounded a bit weird, to say the least. I walked back into my house slowly as to not alert whatever it was. Then, I went upstairs. I locked the door, both locks, and then heard a gravelly deep moan coming from upstairs right as I was about to walk up them. I walked up the stairs and stood in front of the closet. It stopped as soon as I took the last step. At this point, I had enough and jerked the door open. Again, there was nothing there. Then I heard scurrying in the living room. I jumped down the stairs. This was a bad decision. I tripped and landed on my face flat. I woke up dazed but not in any pain. Yet, I looked at the living room and saw a large, tall, bulky figure. It seemed to be gray, but I did not know for sure. It had large, empty eye holes, and its mouth looked like melted cheese. I stayed on the floor. The thing did not move. It just stared at me blankly. Then its jaw gaped open slowly, about the size of our TV. It then ran off into the kitchen, and I heard the back door close. I was laying on the floor for a good while. I then got up and cleaned my nose, surprisingly not broken, but very bruised. I slowly crawled up my bed and slept there peacefully. My parents woke up to find the spices broken, blood on the floor, and a dead deer outside. I told them what happened, but no dice. I remember it clearly to this day, and they still do not believe me. Luckily, we moved to Texas, and there's no more snow for me.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. You're going to enjoy what you hear, so make sure you check it on out. Let's head to Robin. Robin Haynes, it's always good to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back. I missed you guys last week.
Yeah, you weren't feeling very well. You're feeling better now?
Yeah, just a little bit of a cold, but it just there's just a virus going around. And I was coughing and sneezing and feeling nasty, and I thought that's the last thing you guys needed was me on air sneezing my head off. So I went to bed early. Christian had it well under control. So, and you were so gracious when I called. I didn't want to do it last minute, and I was like, I'm just telling you, I'm feeling worse every minute. So.
Well, you know what? We're glad you're feeling better because it always makes us feel good when you are feeling good and back on the show. So thank you very much for joining us again this week. Lots of things to kind of go over, and we will get to audience questions as we normally do during the Crypted Q&A, and I love it when the audience participates. So if you're in our YouTube chat, you can ask a question during this show. We will read it live to Robin. And one of the things that I want to ask you is about gifting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So we started our investigation this past weekend at the Flight 21 crash site, which I gave my presentation on at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference.
It was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And one of the things that we did was let me rephrase this. In 2018, Merle got scared out of an area by a Sasquatch. Fast forward to 2024, Merle is with us again, and we followed this path after finding a 17-inch track. And up at the same tree where Merle was scared out, there was this staff. If you remember, I put that in my presentation about this 8-foot staff. And we traded that for a Canadian dollar coin, which we call a loonie. So I went back there a few weeks later. The loonie was still there. But when we were there on Saturday night, here's something interesting that happened. We didn't have the loonie there anymore. It was a Canadian dime. So we made a trade that dime for a quarter. Now, here's the thing about it, okay? That has happened there before, once before with coins. Now, reality says it could be a raven, it could be a crow, because they do trade items. It might even be a human. But I don't see a human picking up a dollar coin and trading a dime for it at the base of a tree. I don't see that at all.
No.
So how do you know it's Bigfoot making the trade and not something like a crow or raven?
First off, we don't know for sure that it's a Sasquatch, okay? But chances are very high that it is, because you've already got interaction. You've already had, you already know they're in that area. A crow and a raven, while they may pick up shiny objects and change or whatever, they're not going to exchange coins. That's just not the thought process. They may bring another coin and drop it off there, but they're not going to play coin exchange. A human, that's off the beaten path. They're not going to even know you left the first one, let alone the other. The other thing is, it is not uncommon for Sasquatch to have a staff. The elders, the clan leaders, some of the old ones, they will make staffs for different reasons. They will make a different staff that would show their place in the clan or what hierarchy that they might be within the clan. So that would be the first thing that would, to me, say very possible we're Sasquatch. You're an area that you know they're at. You're off the beaten path. And now you have a staff that is 8 feet in height, much higher than what our people would make if they were going to use a staff. So those 3 things right there all are a flag to me that says that it's very possible that it's a Sasquatch. Now you've got a coin exchange. Now, if somebody was being funny about it and just wanted to see what would happen, I can see that if you were in a city at a park where there were kids there or other adults, but not in the area that you're at. Nobody's going to go out to that area to look for a coin. It's just, that's not going to happen. And while it doesn't always make sense that a Sasquatch did it, it makes a whole lot more sense that they did it than a human or even a bird. Like I said, a bird will come in the shiny stuff, and ravens are notorious for it. But to do a coin exchange like that, I don't buy it. It doesn't feel right to me. It just doesn't. Like, I read energies, and with all my clients, we do these little energy tests that it teaches people how to tell if the energy is saying things are true or false. It's very simple. And so when I do that, when I hear that, it's not the bird. That's not what I'm getting in my mind. But that is something that a Sasquatch would do. They are very playful in nature. They use a lot of Native American traditions as far as a gift exchange. They wouldn't know the currency amount or what it would be worth. They would be looking at it as gifting back and forth. Most of the time, if you get them to take a gift, there is gift exchanges. Now, for them to wait a while to take that coin is very common for a Sasquatch. Some clans that are more humanized and desensitized to our ways will do a gift exchange right away. Primarily, they don't, because they're waiting to see if it's a trap. So they're going to watch that coin that you left. That loony would sit there for a while before they would actually take it. I had it on video one time where I tried to do a gift exchange with them, and they would take a stick. They did this for like a week. Take a stick every night and poke the gift and poke it to see if they poked it, if a gun was going to come out, if a cage was going to come out, if somebody was going to jump out to try to hurt them. After a week of poking at it, and they realized it wasn't going to hurt them, then they took it, and then they left me a return gift. So all the things that are surrounding it would be more leading to a Sasquatch than anything else.
Well, and let's go back to the staff there for a second, okay? Because with the staff, you mentioned that elders use them, clan leaders use them. Do you think that was a gift, or do you think that they just left it there?
They don't just leave them. I know, several people that have been gifted them by them. It could be something as simple as they left it there so you would know they had been there, although I doubt it. I think it was left there purposely to let you know that their clan was there. There are multiple people that have been gifted staffs. I have not been gifted a staff, but I know multiple people that have. I've been gifted a number of other things, but I know people that they have gifted them to. And they've gotten used to you guys. I mean, they know they're not in any danger. Like, you might go out there and there be an occasional crabby one or an ET or something, but the ones that primarily know you, like the one that showed himself to you, they know you. They know they're safe. It could be a peace offering, knowing that you're coming in and out of their space, and their way of saying, okay, this is a peace offering, share territory, share the area. This is to let you know that we do have a leader. We're a fully functioning clan, and, we're trying to stay in peace. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of indications. I mean, I'm not going to tell you with 100% certainty that's what it was, but I think there are more indications than not that that was a Sasquatch.
I would agree. I would totally agree. So the fact that they took the loony, left a dime, we've now replaced it with a quarter. What do you think's going to happen next?
I think you could play that game back and forth. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is years ago this happened. I was in Michigan, and on my home, I had these wrought iron baskets that I had attached outside of every window on the outside of my home. And it would look like that wheatgrass or whatever that molds like a liner for the baskets. And that was in it, and I had black dirt in it, and I put flowers in it. I went to bed. I got up the next day. Every plant had been removed from every basket, and in every single basket were coins, nickels, dimes, pennies, and continually there was always more. I don't know where they're getting the change. I think they find it on the ground. It's shiny. They pick it up. People drop change out of their pockets all the time, or they leave them as gifts or whatever. They collect them. I don't know, but literally every one of my baskets ended up full of change. They just kept bringing more. I never knew where they got them, but I've got pictures of them somewhere, but I was just astounded at all the change that showed up.
I'm just curious to see how far we could take this. And, I want to put a trail cam up in that area. I know they could pick them out, but I want to see so bad that it's not a crow or a raven. You know what I'm saying?
My advice for whatever it's worth, okay? Wait on the trail cam. You are establishing a relationship right now, and it's based on trust, or they would never have left the staff. They would never have exchanged another gift exchange. Wait till you're further along so they know that you're that safe place still, and then do the cam. You can eventually do it. You could do it now, but it might make them regress. And it seems like you're actually moving forward. And it becomes to them like a game. You know, it's like a chess game. I'm going to go, this is my move now. What's going to be yours? And I would continue going back and forth with them. It's so weird about the change. Like I said, I knew mine were Sasquatch because there were footprints on the ground under the basket. So it was easy to identify, you know, what was doing it. And they were looking in the window every night anyway. So you could see them in the house. You'd look out and there'd be this face. But there's a lot of other things. And Igor Borstev, the research that he does, he dealt with the Wendigo. And that left change all over for him. I mean, it was truly just incredible. So there seems to be something that coincides with the change. And I don't personally believe it's monetary. It could be the metals that are made out of it. I know some of the Sasquatch have mentioned that, well, they don't understand money and they don't like money. They know our people rely on it. So for them to do a gift exchange, it would make sense because our people rely on it to survive. Where their people just think that's absolutely ridiculous. If you mention anything about money, they don't even know what it is. You know, they're like, why? You know, money oakum, which means bad. So, but they know our people have to have it. So that has a lot to do with it too. But if I were you, I think you're sitting in a really good position to get further contact. I would keep playing the game back and forth and see where it takes you. And then farther down the line, do the camera.
I'm very curious to see what we should do next. You know, like I want to continue with the coins because I know a human isn't going to pick up the coin in that area. But if I start putting shinier objects there, or even like a jar of peanut butter, I know that might be noticed by a human and it's going to get taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you put like, you know, a candy bar or something, the animals are going to take it. So you're better off to keep doing something similar to what you're doing. And again, remember, when you go to do it, not too many pieces at one time. It overstimulates them and they think it's a trap. So, you know, a few things, I would never put more than 3. You know, I did on my gifting station that I had next to my house, they would come up and get things. If I put more than a few things, I found that it just really overstimulated them. It gave them more reason for concern. So if I took things away and I brought it down to just 1 or 2 items, they would play all night with it and things would happen. But if I got more, it was like it would overwhelm them. And I noticed that they would poke at it to see if it was going to bite them or something.
That's very interesting. Very interesting indeed when you think about it, because realistically the gifting thing should not work. Yet here we are gifting to potential cryptid monsters out in the forest and actually getting prizes in return. It's one of the awesome things that leads us down this cryptid road, and we will continue with audience questions on Spaced Out Radio as we are joined by Robin Haynes on the mighty SOR for the Cryptid Q&A.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, there we go.
Do you know one of my favorite things about the research stuff that you do? You are one of Number one, you're one of my favorite people anyway. But you are smart enough and understanding and compassionate enough about them that you realize that you want a positive experience instead of the negative. More people than not, unfortunately, would rather poke the bear, overstimulate, force themselves on them to get them to react negatively just to have that experience. But then it ruins it for the rest of their lives. They never can turn that back around. Where you, because you're such a pure-hearted person and you're such a good person, want that positive experience. And now you're getting the rewards from it. You're actually getting the contact of going back and forth because you are pure of heart and you are a good human and you are going for that positive contact so that it can continue. Like, kudos to you, because not everybody will think along those lines, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we're going in so amateur and so and so what's the word I'm looking for? Inexperienced.
But that's not necessarily bad.
Yeah, it's making for an interesting time because we're going to be learning on the fly. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be learning on the fly, and I think that's kind of the real cool thing that we're going to be doing. And wherever it goes, it goes.
But that's the teachings, okay? They teach us, whether we realize it's coming from them or not. It's part of what they call the teachings. And they are teaching you. They're teaching you interaction with them. They're teaching you patience. They're teaching you to have that positive interaction. And as you're learning, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what this is all about for all of us, myself included. There are no experts in this. If they tell you they're an expert, run out the nearest door. We all are taught, and we're taught multiple ways from multiple cryptids at multiple times. And so what's going on with you is part of the teachings. You learn at the same, they already know what's going on. They do. But you're learning it in the best way possible. Like, it will, even if it went into a lull and it got quiet, what you're learning will affect you later on so that you can continue the contact elsewhere besides just there. I mean, it's really a good, positive thing. It's fantastic.
Well, it is appreciated, that's for sure, in regards to it. And it's just being so much fun right now.
Yeah.
It really is. You know, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You know, I was so excited when we were up there on Saturday that I couldn't contain my excitement. It took me a while to finally slow my heart down because I was just so pumped up on being there.
Well, when you have any interaction at all, like what you're doing is you're playing a game. You're moving pieces on a chessboard. You make a move, then they make a move. But you're learning each other's ways. You're learning different ways to have contact, and it's all part of the process. I mean, it's really and truly a great thing that you're going to take with you and use it elsewhere. But what I've noticed in my experience is when it comes to any kind of contact, whether it's gifting, whether it's a visual sighting, whether it's a noise, or just feeling their presence around you, like I'll go out in the backyard and I can hear them walking through the bushes. And I'm like, I know you're there, guys. You know, and I'll hear a laugh or, you know, I'll hear movement or whatever. But every time is like the first time. I don't care how many times you see them. I don't care how much contact you get. I've had them walk up to me in the yard. You know, I've seen them multiple times. And yet every time I do, the excitement I get, the love I get for them is just like the first time.
Robin, hold on right there because we are coming back in about 25 seconds. And we are going to get to some audience questions here. And thank you tonight to T-Bone with a hat trick, Tim, Tony, Candace, and Mike for the great super chats. Reminder to all of you that you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So check it on out and get your gear today and show it off. Send us the pictures. We'd really like it because we want to put you up on our website. Here we go. Hard to believe we're already in the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate you tuning us on in for all the weird stories about Bigfoot tonight. Oh, it's been such a blast. Hey, we want to remind everybody that if you miss most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. We have Robin Haynes with us, the Crypted Q&A. Going to kick off right now. Robin, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I love it here.
All right. First question goes to Mike. Robin, do you think some Bigfoot have facial features like humans and others like ape faces? Is it breeding with humans? If they do, could be a reason?
100% they have some that are very human-like and some that have more of the flattened nose and more ape-like. As far as breeding with humans, number one, in their culture, it's forbidden. That does not mean that it has not happened throughout history. There have been cases that they have, and that goes against the laws of the clan, and it is punishable by death. So that is not a typical situation. But as we know, the mitochondrial side, which is mom, has human DNA in it, and that's why they look like that. Now, I have one that I'm very close to that has literally walked up to me in my yard, not in the woods, but in my yard. He is built exactly like a human man. He's covered in hair, but his head is the size of a normal human man. His face is shaped exactly like a human man. He is covered in white. He's white. He's not an albino. He's white. He's not old. He has white hair. It's not gray. But it's very, very short white hair over his entire face, including his eyebrows, his eyelids. And then I don't know what he's got on it, but his hair was almost like slicked back. It reminded me of like Fonzie from Happy Days. But the shape of his head and his face, and I was literally within, I want to say, 8 to 10 feet of him. I saw every square inch of him. It is exactly like one of our humans, size-wise and everything. Now, at that time, I think he was like either in his late teens, early 20s. You know, he's bigger now, but I've seen him within the last few years, and he came out from the back of my property. And while bigger, yes, still shaped exactly like one of our human men. If he had no hair, you would not know that this boy is a Sasquatch. And yet I've had others that have come up close to me that absolutely have that apish face and the flattened nose. We need to realize that they are all very diverse. They are as different as we are. They are another type of people. And some do look more apish in the face, and some do look more human. But there are no two alike. The only time you get them they're exactly alike is if they're genetically twins. But everyone looks different. Shape, color, size, everything. And people will say, well, the ones in this area all have conial heads. Number one, just like us, they travel all around. They do things. They move. They shape. You know, they go wherever. Like I have some that are here now that were from Michigan. The ones that I had in Michigan, some of them actually were from Florida and moved to Michigan. So it's very diverse. And just like it is with us, they have traits from their parents. They have moved. They picked up mates in another area. So even though culturally they might be different, they breed, they have their children, and then there's cultural traits from both as far as, looks and appearances and behaviors. So there's no two alike, and they all look different, but it is absolutely not abnormal to see one that looks that human. I've physically seen him myself, and I've seen more than one like that, but Shadow was the one that got up close to me, so is, much more noticeable. Even his ears were not any different than a human man's. It was really incredible. I was so surprised. I expected a little bit more of that apish look to him, but absolutely not. And then some that you would look at and it's like, my gosh, they look just like a great ape, and others are mixed in the middle.
So weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
But they're so diverse.
Let's get to another question. Let's go to T-Bone here. Do the Bigfoot understand things like a virus or sickness?
As far as a virus and sickness, yes. I mean, if you go to them and say, you guys have a virus, they're going to look at you. But what? But if you say to them sickness or put it in a word that they understand, absolutely. They taught me a long time ago how to do healing work on them through frequency. And, everybody says, oh, Reiki. No, it's not Reiki. I don't do Reiki. I don't know how to. I have respect for the people that do, but I don't personally know how to do Reiki. It is a little bit different. You're taking frequency from your own body. You're using it in a way to heal for them, other cryptids, ETs, paranormal entities, all kinds of stuff. And you can do it on some humans if their frequency is as high as yours is. But they do understand those things. But you have to put it in a term that they do understand. Like if you talk to them about money, they're like, what? Money bad, money oakum. When we had COVID, and I would talk to them and I'd say, I'm very concerned. You have part human lineage in you, which means you have access to COVID. And some of them did get it. The ones that stayed in the portals more, the ones that used more of the paranormal abilities, which put them in a higher frequency, they seem to have more of an immunity to it because high frequency diseases and things don't live in. But the ones that their clan did not use their paranormal abilities a lot and were more using only the flesh and blood parts of themselves, they were very susceptible to it. And they were very aware of it. I get contacted when the kids have colds. I get contacted when they're sick. So yeah, they're very well aware of sickness.
All right, let's move on to Seymour. What is the incentive for a Bigfoot to make you aware of their presence?
You know what? I wish I had a good answer for that. I think it's an excellent question. My observation is curiosity. Some of them want to bridge that gap. You have sections of them that just want to stay as far away from us as possible because we're not good to them and they don't want that interaction. But you also have a lot of them that not only are curious about our behaviors, but they don't want to stay hidden all the time. Like they have to hide all the time because we're so horrible. And so there are some that while they don't want to sit down and have dinner with us, are very comfortable sharing the land with us. And they are curious. And for people that have a higher vibration, they're drawn to that because they love it. It feels good to them. And so they want that contact because we feel good as being a higher vibrational person or frequency person. Just like if you have somebody that is not a good person, that means their frequency and their vibration is lower. They will become very interested in that person, not because they like them, but because they are going to monitor them to make sure that they're not going to do anything bad to hurt the clan. Because people with lower vibration and frequency are generally not kind people. Those are the people that you find that are, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, animal abusers, children abusers, that kind of thing, or that would go out, put a gun in out there and try to, hunt down and kill a Sasquatch. They're lower vibrational. They're not well intended. So they're going to keep an eye on them. They will have certain members of the clan watch them profusely to make sure they are not going to do anything that would be a threat to the clan.
Let's go over to... let's take a look. Let's say hi to Blue Cruise here. Do the Sasquatch use plant stalks to clean their teeth and gums?
I'm not going to say they do, but I will say that a couple of them in Michigan would grab the stalks like a toothpick. I wouldn't necessarily say a toothbrush because I don't think that that's what they do with it, but they will use them as to get something out of their teeth. They'll use the stalk to dig a hole, to like dig in the ground. So it's very possible that they do. Like I said, they will try to get something out of a tooth that way. But as far as like a toothbrush, not to my knowledge, doesn't mean they don't. They will take things and run it over their teeth. But for anybody that's ever been up close to a Sasquatch, their teeth are horrible. They're really gungy and grungy and icky. It's not something that they normally do. But would they use a stick to try to get something, out of a tooth that had something stuck in it? I think they absolutely would.
Oh, yeah, I think we all would. It drives us
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's go to Paramarv. Robin, do you think the physical differences between a Florida skunk ape and a husky or Bigfoot from up north are genetic or environmental? Like it's hotter, so they eat less?
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think they're very good at adapting to wherever they live at. And they would. Your skunk apes tend to be a little less civilized than some other areas. And that would be a cultural thing, which if they're down in the swamps, they're away from people. So they're not more prone to human ways. They're a little bit wilder. I think that they adapt well. And I absolutely agree with, like the hotter weather, maybe they would cut back on the food. Maybe that way they would try to be a little leaner because, as we all know, especially as we age and we gain weight, our body temperature is going up. So I think that they adapt very well. And I think that they're highly, highly intelligent and they would make those changes. The ones in Michigan, I noticed before wintertime, they beef up. They put on that extra body weight. So I think it's extremely possible. I would have to say, in my opinion, that I agree with that. They adapt to where they're at. They adapt their lifestyle and their behaviors to it. But we do as well. Like I live right now, I haven't moved yet over to Texas. I'm still in South Carolina. And if we're going to go out and mow the lawn, we're going to go out and do it at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning when it's cool, because we know in the heat of the day, we're going to get fried. You adapt to things in your area, whether it's food or the things that you do within the day.
All right, let's move on to Seymour. How would Bigfoot play with a region that is new to a black bear, meaning a region that black bear recently repopulated?
They love bear meat. They really and truly do. I think to a degree, there's a healthy respect between the two. You're talking about the bear obviously is an apex predator, and the Sasquatch, while I don't consider them that because of the sheer strength that they have, they are formidable component. I mean, if there's going to be a fight, it could be anybody's guess. And I think a Sasquatch could take a bear out at any time. Could the bear do it? Yeah, I mean, it could if the Sasquatch wasn't overly skilled or it was caught off guard. But they do love bear meat. I don't see them, if it's a highly, highly populated bear area, they would probably set up camp on the outskirts of that because of the kids. Just like any parent. I'm not going to move somewhere with my small children where I think that the predators out there are that dangerous. It's like with me living in South Carolina. There's so many venomous snakes here, it makes my stomach sick. If I were going to raise a family, I certainly would never do it here, especially where I live, because that's all we have. Because I wouldn't want that risk to my kids. They would be the same way. Would they be near them so that they could hunt the bear? Absolutely, 100%. But they would not go right in the middle of downtown Bear Alley where it would be a threat to the older Sasquatch or the children.
Let's go over to Blue Cruise. Are the Sasquatch structures near the shoreline of a large body of water, lake, sea, ocean, etc., created for close or easy access to catching fish and other water-based life forms for food use?
It's very possible. We've seen a lot of structures built by the water. I know somebody personally he's wonderful. And he has done extensive research on finding these structures that are right by the water. I personally believe that that has a lot to do with it. I think that we have seen enough of them getting fish out of the water, whether it's lakes, oceans, rivers, streams, whatever. They will eat that continually. They used to bring fish that they would catch in the lakes, and they would bury them on my property so they could go and get it whenever they want. They seem to like to bury them in sand. I don't know if there's something in the sand that helps to preserve it, but I would never find them bury it in the dirt. They would bury it in sand. But we do tend to see by bodies of water a lot of these temporary structures. Those are not a permanent structure. Those are a structure that they would get into, hide, to sit and wait for prey, to observe, watch people in the water, just out of curiosity. But I think a lot of it does have to do with the food source because, if especially a lake, there's the water there and there's food. It doesn't get better than that. And they've got to have both.
Let's go over to T-Bone. Will the Sasquatch ever allow you to take pictures?
I have pictures of them, yes. I don't necessarily know that they allowed it. I do things a little bit different with pictures. When I have a physical sighting of one in my backyard, or when Shadow walked up to me in the yard, I do not take a picture out of respect. Okay? They believe that the lens of a camera steals their soul. And they don't want it done for that reason. If you take a picture of a Sasquatch that is cloaked, and I've taught this to hundreds of people, and it's been proven every single time, because the way they cloak is they raise that frequency and vibration to bend the light around them. If you take a picture of them and they are cloaked, if you think they're there, this is why I tell people all the time, if you want pictures of them, just take random pictures and then blow it up and see if you can find them in it. They are so busy raising their frequency to cloak, they don't mess with your camera. The other thing is, don't put them in the center of the frame. It's too easy with the digital cameras for their frequency to blur it. That's why they're blurry. So like, let's say you saw one in the backyard and you wanted to try and get a picture of it. Put it on the off side of the frame. Take a picture of a tree or something next to it. Put it off center it, because that way it doesn't blur it as badly. But you can get very, very clear pictures of them by going out into the woods, your yard, wherever, standing there with your camera and just clicking in a circle. Personally, I get better footage when I use my cell phone. And the reason is your cell phone has a frequency. We normally carry our cell phones on our body at all time. Sasquatch runs everything through frequency. Everything they do has to do with frequency. They associate that frequency of the cell phone combined with yours, and that's what their normal is when you're around. So they don't think of it as, oh my God, there's something scary, because you have it with you all the time. Where if you bring a camera, you've only got that camera with you while you're on that particular outing. That's not what your frequency is all the time. So they are not as afraid of a cell phone opposed to a camera. I have several cameras that were gifted to me by wonderful people trying to help me get footage. And to be honest with you, all my good footage comes from my cell phone, because they are so used to having that as a part of my body. They are used to that frequency. They are not frightened of that frequency. But I go out and I take my pictures, and I just take random pictures around, or if I feel their energy and I know they're over there, I take a picture of them off-centered while cloaked. And while they are cloaked, they will pop like they are flesh and blood on your camera, or not on your camera, your cell phone. And that is the best way to do it. And that way you are not being disrespectful to them. They are not breaking the code and the laws within the clan because they're cloaked. They are not allowing it. And they don't feel that that lens is taking their soul. Do they know that I have pictures of them? 100%, because I have talked to them about it. I have had them come to me and say, you have the picture of such and such. And I'm like, yes, I do. You guys knew I took it. This is what was going on at the time. And they're like, okay. They're aware of it. If they don't want you to have it, they can remove it from your phone or your camera, and it's gone for good. So yes, they are very much aware of what pictures I have. I have some pictures that they've given me permission to share. I have other pictures that they've asked me not to. I never share photos of babies. I have one that I did years ago that was of a very, very young infant that was in the bushes. I did not even know I got his picture till afterwards. I did share it, and they said they weren't mad. They just said, please don't share baby pictures. I said, okay. And I haven't shared a baby picture since because I didn't even know that he was in there until afterwards. But they are very well aware of everything that I do.
Let's move on as we got 1 minute. One more question to go. Let's go to Leacham. I mean, no insult to them, but throughout history, Sasquatch have been used as a boogeyman stand-in, sometimes rightly so. Do they have a boogeyman besides us?
Yes. Everything, whether you are a cryptid, an ET, dimensional elemental, everything is something that they're afraid of. For a Sasquatch, their biggest thing is a guggly. They also are terrified of the dragons that sleep underground. The ones that come from another planet, they're not so afraid of. But what they call the sleeping dragons, they're petrified of, because when these things wake up, and it happened not this past April, the year before, and they hunt the Sasquatch. So they are terrified of them. Same thing with gugwies. Gugwies are meant to kill. That's what they do. And the only way the Sasquatch can kill a gugwee is to get them on the ground and rip the head off. But the gugwee will hunt the Sasquatch. And so, yeah, they have the boogeymans just like we do. Absolutely.
Robin, I want to say a big thank you for coming on. Tell everybody where they could find you in the next 20 seconds.
Okay. You can find me at paranormal-empowerment.com or under Robin Haynes, no middle initial, on Facebook.
I think you are wonderful, and you make such a good show here on Spaced Out Radio each and every week that you are on. Thank you very much, my beautiful friend.
Oh, I love you guys.
All right. We say goodnight to Robin, and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocket in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocket us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Beautiful job tonight, Robin. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I love
You're
you.
amazing.
Oh, back at you, big guy. And I will see you next week.
Yeah, you will.
Okay,
See
bye.
you soon, my friend.
Bye.
But good night. All right. I guess I got a show to edit. Yes. Merle on tomorrow night. High Contrary One. Human Carl, I saw him in the chat room. How you doing, Human Carl? All right. Go like this. Who's ready to merle it up tomorrow night? All right. I'm going to call this early because I'm pretty worn out. But what I'm going to do here is say merle tomorrow night. So make sure you join us. It's going to be a great, great one. And big thank you tonight with T-Bone with a hat trick, Mike, Candace, Tim, and Tony. We appreciate your love and support. Don't forget, if you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'd greatly appreciate you joining us here each and every night. And tell a friend. Got a lot of new faces in here. Help spread the word. Let's make this bigger and better and more fun each and every night. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.